Donald Trump signed it. He signed the executive order declassifying the JFK, RFK, and MLK files. And then, with the pen, he hands it off to someone and says, give that to RFK Jr. And everybody was just like, dang, what a mic drop moment. So we're all getting really excited to see this. Trump said people have been waiting for this for a very long time. And we are excited too. There's also a lot of big news. Donald Trump's approval rating is plus 13. I kid you not. In his first term, he enjoyed only very briefly in his first couple of days at a 4 percentage point net approval before it flipped completely, and never did he achieve above water approval ratings. In the first few polls to come out for the beginning of his presidency, he's enjoying there's 3 polls, plus 17, plus 6, and plus I believe 16, giving him an aggregate of plus 13. Let's see if he can maintain this. But you see, I wonder what it is that Trump is doing that perhaps is generating such strong approval. Could it be that he's already authorized ATF and DEA to deport people? The Pentagon has already confirmed they'll be using U.S. Air Force aircraft to begin migrant repatriation, they call it. And we've already seen over 500 criminal illegal aliens being arrested and deported. And you've got numerous journalists embedded filming this stuff. These people are very dangerous criminals, violent offenders who are being caught. Perhaps all of that together has a lot of people cheering for Donald Trump. So we're going to talk about all of that, my friends. But before we do, of course, head over to castbrew.com and buy Cast Brew coffee. Does Ian still have any? Ian, of course, has just 392 bags left of Ian's Graphene Dream low acidity coffee. And then, of course, you can pick up Phil Labonte's 2 Weeks Till Christmas.
Let's go.
It is now a month from Christmas, but that's okay. Phil is still dressed like Santa Claus. And, so what we do is we print 5,000 bags like they're empty. And then we hold those because usually we expect it to last us 6 months to a year. Ian sold all of them in 1 month. And it took us 6 weeks to get more. And then he sold 2,000 in like 2 weeks. So he's almost sold 2,000. They love that coffee. So, hopefully we sell it faster than we realize. But of course, you can always get Appalachian Nights. That is our top seller. Rise with Roberto Jr. Stand Your Grounds is sold out. And here's the secret. Not featured on the front page is Focus with Mr. Bocus. Rest in peace, Mr. Bocus. You will never be forgot. But we created this in memoriam espresso blend for Mr. Bocus. And also head over to boonieshq.com. Link is in the description. And you can get your step on Sneck and Find Out skateboard. They're back in stock. We've sold out of the other big popular ones. The 28th Amendment is completely sold out. That's epic. It's the best. And for those that don't know, the 20th Amendment, of course, is the right to keep, bear, and breed chickens. But Step on Snack and Find Out is available at boonieshq.com. And as always, go to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member to support our work directly, and you'll get access to the Discord community. It's a big club. 20,000+ people all hanging out. They're arguing. They're having fun. There's pre-shows. There's after shows. But you'll also get access to our Green Room behind the scenes show. You're going to love this one. Yesterday, we talked with Angela McArdle, the chair of the Libertarian Party, about what went down in her meeting with Donald Trump and how did she get Ross Ulbricht pardoned. And she tells this amazing story about Trump and how he acts and who he is. And it is amazing. It's absolutely hilarious. And then the previous night, we had Dominic Tarczynski, he's a Polish MP. He's for European Parliament. And let's just say this is an uncensored show for a reason, because he discusses what Poland does to defend their country from terror and illegal immigration. And uncensored. So check those out at timcast.com. Don't forget to smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Jake Rattlesnake.
Thank you for having me, Tim. So my name's Jake. I have a channel called Rattlesnake TV where we analyze debates and also host them on a weekly basis. I've got the reality-based podcast where we interview some interesting people. Also been traveling around the world for the last 2 years, just knocking about, getting my boots on the ground. So I've got a travel channel where we do a few little passion projects. We just did a show where we went to Pablo Escobar's old mansions and his old prison. And got one coming out where we're going to be we already did interview the survivors of the killing fields in Cambodia. And as a Timcast exclusive, wow, you heard it here first, myself and Andrew Wilson are starting a political commentary show, just when you thought I didn't need any more channels, which will be launching in about a month, called Not One Step Back, N1SB. And shout out to Andrew Wilson. His birthday today, I think he turns about 85. So
We actually just had him on a Culture War debate show as well. We love having him on to debate. It'd be fun. Elad's hanging out.
Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Elad Eliyahu. I'm a field reporter and resident neocon here at Timcast. Jake, it's good to have you. If you guys are interested in seeing more about the protests at Trump's inauguration, check out Tim Pool's YouTube channel where we have field reporting of those protests.
That's at youtube.com/Timcast.
Yes. Be sure
channel
to
from
check
this
that out after the show. Phil, what's up?
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's go, Tim.
But I do have one more update too. We are going to leave West Virginia. I'm at my wit's end with the state. I do feel bad because I know that the administration has recently changed and they are trying to fix the state. It was long a Democrat state, but so long as they're choosing to enforce some of the laws they have on the books, especially one they passed in 2021, which effectively bans individuals from working as contractors. I did not know they did that. It's similar to what California did. It is one of the most shockingly offensive laws I have ever heard of. And we will get into that a little bit, but later on, because it's a bit more esoteric, but it does matter. I want to say this. There is a move happening across the country to effectively make it illegal for individuals to do work unless they are under the employment control of a company or they register with the state as a formal legal entity. And I believe this is part of the you will live in the pot and eat the bugs. It's largely gone unnoticed, except in California, where it resulted in tens of thousands of people losing their jobs. In smaller states or less populated states like West Virginia, nobody noticed these things were happening. But I'll put it simple. People seem to think when I'm saying contractor, I'm talking about a construction worker. I'm talking about hiring someone to build me a birdhouse or draw a picture of a giraffe. You can't do it. It is insane what we are dealing with right now. I am I am so offended. I've never been so offended in my life. That's how insane this law is. But we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about the news first, because I know some of you are probably like, yeah, I don't know what that's all about. But it is important. Here's a story from the Post-Millennial. Breaking: Trump signs executive order to declassify JFK, RFK, and MLK files. Everything will be revealed. We have this video here. I'm going to play for you. It is an amazing video. Some say it's the best.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades. And everything will be revealed.
Someone's going to be in trouble.
Give that to RFK Jr.
That was the best.
Lastly,
He says,
sir, we
give
have an
that one to
executive
RFK
order.
Jr. Could you imagine?
Hugh Joe Rogan, hey?
Yeah.
Rogan's going to love this one.
This is going to be nuts. So I don't know when the exact date is. We can read. On Thursday afternoon, after nearly 61 years, the files in the assassination of JFK were declassified by Trump. The files in the assassination of MLK Jr., RFK, will also be released. Kennedy was shot in 1963. We understand this. Saying in the coming days, we're going to make public remaining records. This we understand. So maybe we do have an update so far on this one.
So they said that it's going to be unredacted. Is that what he means by everything's going to be revealed?
Yeah, and well, I believe I heard it will be in March when it formally is released. I'm not entirely sure. But the language of the executive order has been released, and we do have it. So let's read it so we can understand. I don't know if we need to read literally everything about it, but it says, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, it hereby ordered as follows. Section 1, policy and purpose. More than 50 years after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., the federal government has not released to the public all of its records related to the events. Their families and the American people deserve transparency, et cetera, et cetera. President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992 required all records related to the assassination to be publicly disclosed in full October 26, 2017, unless the president certifies that continued postponement is made necessary, et cetera, et cetera. I previously accepted proposed redactions from executive departments and agencies in 17 and 18, but ordered the continued reevaluation of those remaining redactions. And blah, blah, blah. He says, I ordered agencies to re-review in the next 3 years to disclose that no longer warrants continued withholding. President Biden issued subsequent certifications with respect to those records in 21, 22, and 23, which gave agencies an additional time to review the records. I've now determined that the continued redaction and withholding of information from the records pertaining to the assassination of JFK is not consistent with public interest, and the release of these records is long overdue. Within 15 days of this order, the DNI and Attorney General shall, in coordination with the Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs and the Counsel to the President, present a plan to the President for the full and complete release of records relating to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Within 45 days of this order, the Director of National Intelligence and the Attorney General shall, in coordination with the Assistant to the President, review records related to the assassination and present a plan for the President for the full and complete release of those records. The second one was RFK and MLK Jr. So, right, that's what we heard. By March, they should be totally released, but JFK coming soon. Are we going to learn that LBJ colluded with the CIA to kill the president?
I don't know about LBJ. But I mean, honestly, I haven't done any kind of digging into the JFK assassination stuff. I always figured it was, Lee Harvey Oswald and at least one accomplice.
What are the going theories? I mean, you guys are talking. You were saying that you think that Israel did it, Ilad.
I mean, if Israel wasn't involved, then I don't think anybody would be interested. I think the question
the question. The question is not who did it. The question is, did Israel do it, and how did Israel do it?
It is going to be funny when the day before the documents release, all of those anti-Israel people on the internet are going to be foaming at the mouth. And the day after, if Israel's not mentioned, they're going to pretend it doesn't exist.
Candace has already tweeted, if they say anything about Iran or someone else, I'm going to lose it or whatever. She's already primed for it to be Israel.
So it is a suggestion that that Trump is signing the executive order to release fabricated information implicating Iran for the benefit of American interests to go to war with Iran.
No, it was before they even had beef with Iran. Wasn't it? It was in the 60s. Didn't
Right.
the beef start in
That doesn't
1979?
matter. That's not important.
Could
Well,
be
I guess
Russia.
the USA were in Iran with the communism before 1979.
Or they released fake documents implicating Iran was somehow involved so that we could justify military intervention. And Elad is nodding his head.
I don't think no matter what will come out from this, I don't think anybody will be satisfied. I think it'll likely just say Lee Harvey Oswald likely acted alone, and then people will just say there's more redacted stuff and not be satisfied with that.
You think it'll say he acted alone?
Something like that. I don't think we're going to get all of the juice that we want to out of this squeeze.
Did you mean to say the juice, or did you mean?
And same it's funny too, because we don't focus on the RFK murder. He was murdered by, it was like a Palestinian activist, Sirhan. I actually asked RFK Jr. about this specifically. He said that he doesn't think there was any foul play involved in that assassination attempt.
Sirhan, was he controlled by the Mossad?
Well, that's the thing. If he wasn't, then it's not interesting to talk about. So, if you kind of can't thread the needle with that.
It wasn't the guy who then killed Lee Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby. Was he an Israeli national, or was he just Jewish?
I think it was a Jewish guy, the guy who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, and then allegedly is involved in the cover-up of it, because if the guy's dead, then you can't.
Have you read the book?
Confirmed.
The book Chaos goes through how there was some sort of, during the MK Ultra, there was some doctor who was heavily involved in it, who also interviewed Jack Ruby, and maybe Jack Ruby had some sort of MK Ultra stuff happening behind the scenes. So,
well, I'm not too sure that JFK and RFK weren't involved in the Lolita Express with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm kidding. That was a
Big
that was a joke.
right there.
No. That was a big joke. Because we don't have the Epstein files anymore. It just seems to be swept under the table.
I wonder if MK Ultra could come out that it's an MK Ultra.
Well, I have been reliably informed by Dr. Ron Paul himself. It was the CIA. It's kind of crazy because when I was growing up, the implication that there was any kind of conspiracy would get you ridiculed.
Yeah.
And today, it's just like Ron Paul comes on the show and he's like, the CIA did it. And we're like, oh.
The widely accepted theory is that the CIA.
Yeah, the theory is
CIA.
that the theory is that after the Bay of Pigs was such a colossal failure, Kennedy was like, the CIA can't do the job that they're essentially, designed to do, so we're going to get rid of CIA, and then so CIA hired people, or whether it be Lee Harvey Oswald or multiple people, to kill Kennedy. And I mean, whatever anyone's opinion of it is, honestly, that story does seem to be the most legit, because the CIA had done a bunch of things to try and get Castro, and they'd failed multiple times. There had been and it put a lot of egg on the face of the administration. And so when Kennedy was like, look, this is not working, and this is actually fairly anti-American, we need to rein these people in, they were like, well, that was essentially the argument goes that was the actual beginning of the deep state, right? The administrative state, the intelligence apparatus decided that they were more important than a president. And from then on, the country's been run by CIA, State Department, and DOD as the blob, which is what Mike Ben's.
Have you guys ever seen the movie Shooter with what's his face? Mark Wahlberg.
No.
You haven't seen Shooter?
Nope.
Really? None of you guys?
No.
Yeah. Serge has seen it. Have you seen it?
I think I have, yeah.
Oh,
a long time ago.
So good. They basically, it very much feels like it's about the JFK assassination. Basically, Mark Wahlberg is a retired, military sniper of some sort, and he gets approached by the government. They're like, "We fear someone's going to try and make an assassination on this politician, and we need an expert who can tell us how they might do it." And so he's like, "I don't want to do it," and they're like, "Well, make it worth your while." So he's like, "Okay, I guess I agree." And they bring him to this political event where they're like, "Tell us where to look. Where is he going to be?" And the guy's like, "Up there. That's the spot he would do it from." And then all of a sudden he turns around. There's some fat cop, and the cop just shoots him. And then Mark Wahlberg falls out the window. Basically, they brought him there to frame him as the assassin, tricking him, asking him for security consultation. And then it's like this big conspiracy. The movie's pretty good. And it's basically somebody in Hollywood was like, "Here's how I think the JFK thing went down, and here's what really happened." And so they decided to make a movie based on that like conspiracy theory.
Maybe I'm just a sucker for a mainstream narrative, but if this Thomas Crooks guy was able to get a clean shot off at Donald Trump, and we believe that he acted alone, then I don't think it's beyond reason that Lee Harvey.
Do we believe that?
Do you think he acted alone?
I think that's the official narrative.
Do you think he acted alone?
Yes.
You do. I got a bridge. You want to buy it?
In Brooklyn?
It's in Brooklyn.
Well, then maybe in 100 years we'll have more information come out about this Matthew Crooks guy. But the official story coming out now is
days, man. Donald Trump is
right.
is in the administration, and,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
he
honestly,
was the target. I
He
mean,
should declassify that first.
yeah.
I suppose, though, in terms of things going on right now, maybe he wouldn't do it because could you imagine what would happen if Trump declassified and it was like elements within the U.S. government or in private sector colluded to try and take his life? What that would do to this country? I don't know that Trump would want to see.
Do you think that they
And the
would have
people
covered their
involved.
tracks to the point where they know that he has potential, if they miss, to get into the White House next? So they're going to be covering their tracks so that he doesn't have anything to release once he's in. So.
Well, one of the original excuses for not releasing the JFK files early on was that people who were involved in the case in one way or another were still alive, and they didn't want people chasing down those people. So I guess the same principles could be applied for anybody involved in the Thomas Crooks stuff.
I
Or
guess the same
incompetencies
argument-
in the Secret Service leading to...
Yeah, look, they might make the same argument, but honestly, considering that it's not something that has been covered up for a long time, and Donald Trump got elected and he was the target, it makes perfect sense for the administration to say, we're going to find out what happened, where the failures were, and if there was some kind of nefarious plot, we're going to expose that, and we're going to put those people in jail.
You would think that would be up top of the agenda.
That
they
is
tried to
not-
kill somebody who was running for president.
Yeah, that's not an unreasonable ask at all. That is something that it should be completely obvious that the administration would do. It's the questionable behavior would be if they don't look into it.
I think it's just that Trump is just such a G that he just takes it in his stride and doesn't sit there complaining. Like, imagine if that happened to Joe Biden, or imagine if that happened to Kamala Harris. They would still be sort of begging for sympathy.
We
right
would
now.
still, like, all the flags wouldn't be at half mast for Jimmy Carter. They would still be at half mast for Obama's ear, and we would have to hear about it we would have heard about it every single day since last August.
One half of the country would have been
I got to
doing
be honest. Like, Trump missed a lot of opportunities with the attempt on his life. There's tons of Star Wars memes that he could have entertained, and he didn't. And sometimes I wonder if the sense of humor on this guy. Could you imagine? Let's jump to this next story. We got this one from Politico. Time to admit it. Trump is a great president. He's still trying to be a good one. What a world we find ourselves in, ladies and gentlemen, where Politico is calling Trump a great president. Now, they're going to say, they're not saying that he's like moral and good. They're saying that he is the greatest president, the president of consequence of our lifetime. And they go on to mention that he appears messianic to his followers in tone. And then we have this. President Trump job approval. Since he began, it has only been a few days, admittedly, but the polls show Donald Trump with a 13-point aggregate net approval, the highest he has ever enjoyed, ever. And his favorability is currently above water. That has only happened one other time, and that was in December. When Trump first got into office in his first term, his favorability was in the gutter. It remained very low. In December of last year, it briefly spiked at 0.2, and this is aggregate. And as of right now, at about 0.2%, Donald Trump is favorable. So you'd expect this because people are going to be like, I don't like the guy, but he's doing a good job. And that's what we're seeing. But a 13% aggregate approval rating right off the bat is massive. And I will add, as a cherry on top, Joe Biden exited his presidency as the lowest approval rating of any president in recorded history.
No, that's the most popular president in history, Tim. What are you talking
That's right.
about?
I mean,
1 million.
I'll play that game. I will absolutely play that game, and I will tell every Democrat, what did you do wrong in policy that resulted in the most popular president ever becoming the least popular president ever? Certainly, something related to his policies led to the most popular becoming the least approved. Right?
Well, it's a good point. If we want to eat the narrative, the given narrative about what happened in the 2020 election, then okay, we can now eat it and say, well, didn't you guys mess up? Didn't you guys mess up?
And then what we can do is we can say, let's take a look at all the policies that Democrats rolled out in those 4 years and then explain how this man who got more votes than any president in history then went on to enact these set of policies, and it resulted in him having the lowest recorded approval rating in the history of this country.
What do they mean in the article by he's a great, but he's trying to be a good one?
So they're saying great as in
prosperous, grand,
Impactful.
yes.
and they're saying good. They're saying we're not, like the article's like, we're not saying he's good and morally great, or like we're saying that he's of consequence.
Okay, I see. It's just like
Right.
ridiculous. What do they consider good? Do they consider Joe Biden's hair sniffing and bombing new wars and prosecuting your political opponents? Is that good?
Good is just nice.
Okay,
If they
nice.
say the nice things, the things that will make people say, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's the nice thing to say," like that kind of
It's
stuff.
almost like you can't
That's
call a president good if
Yeah.
they are doing good things.
That's something we talked.
To be fair, if Donald Trump came out right now and said that he was going to do everything he can to help Ukraine win the war, including sending wave after wave of his own men into battle, every mainstream corporate news outlet would be like, Trump is a good president.
Yep.
He is virtuous. We were wrong.
Did you remember on CNN when he bombed Syria for the first time,
right.
and then Zachariah came out and was like, Trump became president today. He looks presidential now.
Unreal. The idea that you have to engage in military action to be presidential, I think that's kind of ridiculous. It does come with the territory. You can't deny that fact. But to say that he wasn't presidential until then, I think that's just absurd.
Yeah. It was a slide on his presidency.
So
actually.
what do you think is causing what they're saying right now is Trump's approval rating is the honeymoon phase. And when he first got elected, he was a 4-point net approval, and then it dropped within 3 days. 13 is pretty large. What do you guys think? Is this just a honeymoon's going to go away, or
a honeymoon phase is Kamala's TikTok campaign. That was a honeymoon phase when she's doing the green screen dancing, and then after a few weeks, it goes back into the toilet. That's a honeymoon phase. Look, this is like the weight of expectation being realized.
Yeah, the Dow Jones Industrial Average hit a new all-time high again today. Crypto is doing well, if I understand correctly. These kind of things add to a sense of well-being to the American population because most people, not most people, but a significant portion of the American population has things like 401ks and they have some kind of savings. So those people look at their 401ks, they look at their portfolios and they say, well, this is good. About the only thing that you can see the Democrats really criticizing Donald Trump on is something that he has no control over, which is the cost of eggs because of the bird flu or whatever that's happened. So there's a problem with getting eggs. That's got nothing to do with Donald Trump or the greater economy. That is just supply and demand. And I think that his approval rating is going to continue to be high for Donald Trump and for presidents in general, as long as he keeps doing things that he promised he was going to do. I think that stuff has a significant effect on his approval rating. The fact that he keeps doing things people say they want.
I want to gloat. I'm gonna brag about the massive wealth that we here at Timcast have in our ability to get eggs, and it's not money, it's chickens. And everybody right now, when that story came out about how stores have run out of eggs and there's a shortage because they're culling chickens, I warned you. But you know what? Hate to say I told you so.
Make chickens great again, huh?
That's right. Absolutely. That's right, good sir.
From Australia, we love our chickens. So.
There you go. So, but now that I've just interrupted with stupid inanities, I don't know, Alaa, what do you think?
Trump's been a larger-than-life figure as soon as he kind of came on the political scene. And I think for many people, though, it pushed him over that edge with the assassination attempt in Butler and just the way it happened and the way he kind of escaped death by twisting his head. So for a lot of his evangelical base, that really pushed him over the edge to it makes it seem as though that he survived for a particular reason. And I believe that in his heart of hearts, Trump believes that he was able to survive that assassination attempt for a reason. I believe he thinks it's so he was going to be able to save America. I think he's still riding a high from that assassination attempt with the rally around the flag effect. I think this is about as high as his approval ratings are going to get, but these are amazing heights that we're seeing even to begin with. I think it's an all-time high even for Donald Trump. So as soon as he hits some major roadblocks is when we're going to see when some major decisions have to be made. But we're only, a day or two in, so.
It's 3 days, and I guess today was the 4th day. Trump's approval has never been above 50%. It just in the beginning of his first term for a couple days, this is the only other time, and it is the highest it has ever been.
Yeah, and especially because it feels as though this past election was in a referendum on whether or not you liked Donald Trump's presidency or Joe Biden's presidency more. And I feel like people were having that nostalgia for Donald Trump through the Joe Biden presidency, and that's what brought so many people who might not have typically supported Donald Trump in the past on board for his campaign. I will say this. I feel like Trump's cult-like following, too, is unique in our modern American politics. No other politician has anything near the supporter base who is loyal to Donald Trump no matter what he does and says. Is unique in this modern era. AOC has it differently. Bernie Sanders has it differently. Trump can do no wrong in the eyes of many of his supporters, and I think that's a big part of...
Currently or ever?
Now.
Currently.
Yes.
So, because I would say that Barack Obama had a similar cult of personality, essentially.
I wouldn't say it was the same fervor that we're seeing.
I disagree.
At least in my estimation,
Who do you think would win if they were to run against each other in their peak? It's just like Mike Tyson versus Ali in their peak.
In their peak,
it depends
Barack
on the
Obama.
era. It depends on when it's happening. Because Donald Trump was a reaction to Barack Obama in many ways. There's also this one thing, I forgot it. It was the Correspondents' Dinner when Obama made a slight at Donald Trump, and it was one of the major things that inspired him to run originally. So it's like
Is that when he
it's part
said
of
he will never be president?
Yeah, and then they zoom in on Donald Trump's face angrily
Sweet
stewing in it.
vengeance. So.
Yeah, there was the he did it when he did the reading mean tweets, but he also did it at the Correspondents' Dinner. And I think the Correspondents' Dinner with a room full of people while Donald Trump is there laughing at Donald Trump's expense, I think that's when he was like, I'm going to run for president, F you. And then obviously, we know what happened from then. But I do think that Barack Obama is directly responsible for MAGA and Donald Trump, because before MAGA, it was the Tea Party, and the Tea Party was strongly disrespected by people like Barack Obama and the Democrats, and they were generally like, well, we need to be the nice Republicans, and then once they were treated so badly for simply saying things like we want low taxes and we don't want to have a big socialist style government. The response was to call them names and stuff. And so then they were just like, well, you know what? Mitt Romney's not getting the job done, so let's go to the guy that'll go ahead and throw his middle fingers up.
Mm.
There was too long a period of these docile Republicans that were just playing the, well, slow down there, Democrats.
Yep.
And then Donald Trump was like, if you elect me, I'll smash the door in. People were like, all right.
Do you guys think that there's going to be a legacy of Trumpers in the White House from now on? I think that we could see one of his sons and then eventually Barron.
Yes.
I think we could see 100 years of Trumpers in
I don't
politics.
know about 100 years.
We
Because I don't see Don Jr. or Eric as being president. Trump Sr. is a unique figure, but Barron,
yeah,
Barron, I definitely
he's got something. Yeah.
Yeah, aside from the fact that he's like 8'7",
They don't live long. Tall people don't live long.
that's true.
Yeah.
There was a viral post where a tall guy was asked by his doctor, "Have you ever seen a tall old person?" So, but I think Barron is going to have a massive impact. Who knows? You never know. But from what I hear, being raised around, like growing up in this world of cutthroat politics that his dad is going through, has made him incredibly savvy and understanding how the political machine works. That means that if he does decide to go this route, he is going to be better at this than anyone around him.
Yeah. There's also Laura Trump, who is already co-chair of the, the RNC. So she already has her foot in the pond. I think the major...
I don't think a woman will ever be president.
When they look back at Donald Trump, well, that's part of why Trump is 2-0. When they look back on the Trump legacy, I think he'll be one of the last forces
He's
that was...
2-1, sorry.
He's going to be the last, known as the last guy who's able to unite the Republican Party behind him. I think we're in for a major shift in both of the parties, and Donald Trump will be known as the last guy on the right who was able to get the pro-lifers, the TradCon people, the neocons, the Zionists, everybody on board, and kind of have the three-legged stool of the
Do you guys think that the days of the canned Republican are over? Because I think one of the things that's attractive about Trump is that he does, he sits down and he talks off the cuff. He's done more interviews in his first 3 days than President Biden did his whole time in office.
Yeah.
And that's not an exaggeration. He's talked to the press more in the past 3 days than Biden has did in his whole time in office. So do you think that that's what the future holds? And do you think that that will be something that the Democrats emulate?
Yeah, I think that I think that Don Jr. will be president one day. If I was a gambling man, I'd put money on that.
But the style,
he's got a similar
Good
sort of.
thing you are
he's got
not a gambling
He's
man.
got a similar sort of swagger to his old man in that regard. But if you look at the next wave coming out, you've got Vance who can do that. I think he still needs to prove himself a little bit because he was a never Trumper. And if the storm really comes and he sticks by Trump's side, then I think people will sort of endear to him more, the ones who haven't already. And then if you've got Vivek, I think Vivek will have a comeback. I think it would be ridiculous to write Vivek off after one stupid Twitter post that was quite revealing.
It was a very stupid...
It was pretty revealing.
It's antithetical to...
But Donald Trump, and it's wild to me, the story has not gotten traction, gave a speech where he said, this is just the other day, he supports H-1B because we need wine experts and waiters.
And waiters, yeah.
I'm like, where is the outrage? That was worse than what Vivek
Well,
said.
he's Donald Trump, so he could get away with that stuff. Vivek Ramaswamy cannot get away with that
I
stuff.
don't know if he can. I think that he had a whole movement pushing back against him in this election of people who were saying, no, you're not radical enough. Even a lot of the Catholics.
I feel like he was
saying, "You're too soft
astroturf
on
to
abortion."
begin with, to be fair, though, as far as Vivek Ramaswamy goes.
Yeah, but you don't want that. I mean, you look at India; they've got whole industries around getting people fake degrees and getting people fake qualifications in order to get visas. It's massive in Australia. We're just
let's talk about immigration. We got the story from the Post Millennial. Breaking: federal judge temporarily blocks Trump executive order ending birthright citizenship. The case was brought forth by the attorneys general of Arizona, Oregon, Washington, and Illinois on Tuesday against the executive order. U.S. District Judge John Coffenauer issued the ruling in a case brought forth by the attorney generals. According to ABC News, the suit stated the plaintiff states will also suffer irreparable harm because thousands of children will be born within their borders but denied full participation and opportunity in American society. Absent a temporary restraining order, children born in the plaintiff states will soon be rendered undocumented, subject to removal or detention, and many stateless. Let me just stress this to everybody who watched our amazing episode with Thomas Massey. There was a question about the intent of the 14th Amendment, which, of course, states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction therein are citizens. And as I described it, as my limited readings of the Civil War, I am by no means an expert, it was very easy to conclude the intention of the 14th Amendment was descriptive, not prescriptive, that the amendment was stating all of the people as of right now who were born here and subject to our jurisdiction are citizens, right? Done. And here's what gets better. The argument is, no, it means that from this point forward, anybody who's born here is a citizen. That's actually not correct. And I have the tweet just for you because it was Jacob B. Howard during the congressional debates on the 14th Amendment, specifically addressing the issue. And I quote, "This amendment, which I have offered, is simply declaratory of what I regard as the law of the land already, that every person born within the limits of the United States and subject to their jurisdiction is by virtue of natural law a citizen of the United States. This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States, but will include every other class of person. It settles the great question of citizenship and removes all doubt as to what persons are or are not citizens of the United States. It's long been a great desideratum, pronouncing that wrong, in the jurisprudence of the legislation of this country." He quite literally stated in 1866 in the debate, in written historical quote, this will not include foreigners, aliens, etc. So how, for the life of me, we got to this point where we were just like literally anybody at any point who comes here and has a kid, that kid's a citizen, is insane. I believe it is corrupt individuals seeking to corrupt ends to corrupt this country. And that is how, not even that long after this man died, he died only, I believe, about 5 years after this debate, they immediately said, well, now that we think about it, he must have meant everybody for all time. And here we are with this great conundrum as to what it means for this country to be a citizen. Donald Trump is correct in this executive order, and I hope the Supreme Court finds it as such.
There are a lot of people that, well, in case you're not aware of it, this is the next necessary step to get this in front of the Supreme Court. So this is exactly why Donald Trump made the executive order, so that way someone would challenge it, so that way you can go ahead and go up go through the necessary steps to get in front of the Supreme Court. So.
Yeah, as somebody who was who's looking for a citizenship myself at the moment, I kind of wish my mum had looked ahead. But it is kind of crazy that you can do that and you can just have a baby and your family history from then on is forged in America.
How absurd is it? I'm about to have a kid. I was talking to Allison. I'm like, should we just take a trip quick up to Canada real quick? That way our kid will have the option of Canadian citizenship and American citizenship. And she looked me dead in the eyes and said, who on God's green earth would want Canadian citizenship?
Yeah, it's kind of...
We all laughed and high-fived, and then we carried on for the day.
It should be
It's
a part
actually
of
not what
America.
happened, but...
Should be another state, shouldn't it? Canada? Aren't you guys going to annex it at some point?
Yeah, but the problem is it would be several states. Like Texas was going to be 5 different states because it's so big, and then it chose to be 1. Would have been great if it was 5.
It would probably be another Democrat state as well, so,
Yeah, the border, the southern... If Texas was 5 states, the southern border ones would be Democrat. Yeah, that's the thing about Canada. It would be broken up into several states. There certainly are very many conservative areas. There would be more red states added, but it's no, we don't want Canada.
We need comprehensive immigration reform from Congress and not the executive branch. And that's why I think a lot of this stuff is going to get muddied. I'm not a lawyer. I can't perfectly break down how this law is going to be interpreted. And I feel like you could interpret it both ways depending on how you would like to.
It's a question of the Supreme Court, not necessarily of Congress. The Supreme Court is going to answer the question on the 14th Amendment, and I hope they answer it correctly as for Jacob B. Howard, I believe his name was, his exact quote. It's remarkable. He literally said it does not include, this of course will not include foreigners or aliens. And yet here we are. How that is so shockingly offensive. Like at some point, some judge was just like, "No, we want it to," and like, well, okay, now we have a crisis. So the next step is obviously going to be with this temporary block. There's going to be an appeal. It's going to go to SCOTUS, and we're likely going to see what is a 6-3 court issue their ruling.
Passport bros take advantage of this stuff, You get the passport bros around the world who will be like, all right, I'm going to have a baby. Argentina, Mexico, new passports every single time for the family. So you don't want to be one of those countries.
Do you have any sense that should the Supreme Court rule that if someone is born here, doesn't matter the circumstances, essentially anchor babies are acceptable under the Constitution, do you think that the American people have the stomach to actually produce an amendment and change that?
Produce an amendment?
I don't think it would pass. That's the thing. Yeah. No, it wouldn't. They wouldn't be able to pass the threshold to do it. I don't think.
Okay.
We're not going to get a new amendment ever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my sense as well. So it's like there's some people that I'm friendly with, they're talking about this and they say, well, if this goes to the Supreme Court, because it's plainly worded and the Supreme Court finds that Donald Trump is right, that anchor babies aren't covered under the 14th Amendment, that's not what they meant, then they're going to call that judicial activism and that they're legislators on the bench. Now, I don't really agree with that. I don't think that that's the case because I do think that subject to the jurisdiction thereof, I think if you just get over the line and have a kid, I don't think the person's actually subject to the jurisdiction because they're not a citizen of the country.
Howard clarified this. He actually stated in the debate that it does not involve partial jurisdiction. It is only complete jurisdiction.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm only relating the argument that I don't agree with.
How long's it been there for?
Since 1860, I think.
1866.
Yeah.
The thing about our immigration system is literally every single part of it is being taken advantage of and being manipulated by actors without our best interest. So not only are they taking advantage of birthright citizenship, people are taking advantage of our H-1B system and how they're getting work visas into our country. They're gone.
1868, sorry.
And the reason, oh, sorry,
not even just birthright citizenship or the H-1B visa system. They're also abusing chain migration, where if you're an American citizen, you could marry somebody and then bring over their kids, and they'll become American citizens too. So there was originally supposed to be a limit when I believe they passed the Hart-Celler Immigration Act of 1945, something like that. We need immigration reform on the grand scales, and just doing it through executive action will leave us open to all of this being able to be undone in the future. I don't think we can rely on the Supreme Court trying to interpret different laws different ways to try to get this goal done.
So then
Congress
you're saying,
needs to act.
So then Congress
we need new laws to be passed.
But if this is an amendment thing,
it'll have to go to the Supreme Court.
It'll have to be the Supreme Court, or it'll have to be an amendment, because this was passed long before there was any, before Social Security, before any kind of government assistance program. And the idea that you can come here, have a baby, get over the line and have a baby 2 days, 3 days after you get here, and that child gets to stay, or even if the child gets to come back when it's 18 and bring the family back when they're older, then they get onto Social Security, then they get, some kind of support from the federal government. No American's going to be okay with that.
Well, even
Nobody thinks that's
pragmatically,
acceptable.
it's like birthright citizenship. You have the kid, it stays here, but then it's going to be more difficult and ethically difficult to remove the parent as well, because just imagine how that plays on the news. Oh, this kid's been an American here. This kid's 4 years old, and his dad's been here for 5 years. And what? Now you're just going to deport one person?
Yep.
Who's going to take care of the child? And that's how they will emotionally blackmail people into accepting amnesty for n number of
Be strong.
immigrants.
Be strong. That's all I ask. Be strong. Tom Homan said they can go back with their family. We'll keep the families together. And he's right. I am deeply offended that when Trump shuts down the border immediately because we know about the child trafficking going on, the media plays an image of a crying woman. Oh, no, the woman's crying. Quick, tear up the Constitution. Be strong. Resist the manipulation attempts and be strong and say, listen, we are not doing this to make that woman suffer. We are doing it because there's abhorrent evil happening on our border, from murder to rape to child trafficking, and it must be stopped. And that means some nice people who are trying to enter illegally, I'm offended by that, but okay, are going to have to be told they can't come in, and the port of entry is that way.
Yeah, you guys are going to have to get smart to this as well, because right now you've obviously got a wave of immigration happening from Latin America. It's been happening since maybe the 60s, was it the Immigration Act of 1965 or something like that? Before that, it was more Western European, Northern Europeans. And then the next wave of immigration, if you're not careful, is going to be Indian, Chinese, etc.
It already is.
But like on a massive scale, like it's happened in Australia, for example, and like it's happened in Europe, but it's happened from the Middle East in Europe.
Yeah.
And when these cultures clash, it's not like there are a bunch of Catholics coming in. When these cultures clash, it is civilization destroying.
Well,
you walk
To be
around
fair,
Melbourne or Sydney,
they clashed with the Catholics when they first came here, too.
well,
Yeah,
they do clash, but not to the extent where these people. Where it's just a lot worse when you look at the Indian and the Chinese populations of Australia, for example.
That is different. But if you're talking about immigration from South America, that's a lot of Catholics. So the problem is they're liberation theologist Catholics. They're socialist Catholics. So
yeah. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying
with that. But
liberation theology.
you started saying like James Lindsay with the socialist
Liberation theology is a legit thing. That's part of the
What, do you
reason
work
why
right
the current pope from Argentina is like a lot of Catholics are like when it comes to the current pope, because like he's actually a liberation theology Catholic. It's a different understanding of Catholicism.
Sounds like that lady who gave that sermon at the recent.
Well, she's
Trump,
Episcopalian, and so she's a heretic. So
And you making fun of James Lindsay makes me think that you work right. You work right.
I'm just trying to have a good time on this Thursday evening.
So yeah, I mean, I think that I would like to see the 14th Amendment. I would like to see the court come back and say no. It's clear that they didn't mean that anchor babies were a thing, but I don't know for sure that that's what we get, and I don't know what kind of backlash that means from the people that do think that it should be that anchor babies should be okay. So
Let's jump to the story from Fox News. First images of ICE mass deportation efforts show arrest of MS-13 gang members and murder suspects. Trump administration moving rapidly to fulfill mass deportation promise. So I guess we're hearing that already over 500 violent criminals, or there have been 500 arrests, many of them violent criminals. They say Fox News embedded exclusively with ICE in Boston as the agency targeted egregious criminal aliens, including MS-13 gang members and murder suspects, as part of mass deportation efforts under Trump. Fox News witnessed ICE Boston make 8 arrests, including multiple MS-13 Interpol Red Notices, murder and rape suspects, and a volatile Haitian gang member with 18 convictions in recent years who told our cameras that he ain't going back to Haiti and F Trump Biden forever. Did you guys see that clip where he's screaming, F Trump, I ain't going back? Well,
What a meme.
what was it Tom Homan? He was like, well, he's going back, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I was speaking to a Venezuelan the other day, and they were saying to me, it's actually getting a little bit more safe on the streets of Caracas because of all the criminals going to America. So
I'm
you guys
bummed
have
out.
taken them all.
I'm bummed out. You can't see the ICE agents. I wanted to see big smiles on their faces. They're tossing the criminal aliens into.
Could perhaps this be why Trump's approval rating is so high?
I mean, this is what people elected him for. People can make up the Democrats on X and on Blue Sky can make a whole bunch of noise if they want, but the average person that said, you know what, I want to vote for Trump, they voted for Trump, knowing full well that he was going to round people up. There was no ambiguity about it. He was like, yes, we're going to round up the criminals. I've been talking about the criminals since 2016. I mean, he's going to be. Everyone knew that was coming, and they still voted for him. And he won the first, Republican majority since 2000 or since like 1988 or something like that. So
Yeah, it's been a minute since Reagan, I guess.
Yeah, it was not a surprise, and this is what the American people want. And I think that this is part of the reason why he has such a high approval rating, because he's doing the things that he said. Americans do not like the idea of criminal aliens running around in the streets, and they see videos like that dude swearing up and down and saying, I'm not going anywhere, no, and the guy is a criminal. It's like, all right, good, we get that guy out of here. That's what Americans want. Americans like the idea of the Marines going to the border ready to get into gunfights with the cartels if the cartels shoot at the Marines. That's something the American
Like what the
people
Polish
want.
guy was saying the other night. He's like, why not just kill? Just kill.
We don't say that kind of stuff here.
Well, no, I mean, and to clarify, because we brought it up, CBP has long been authorized to use lethal force against lethal force.
Yeah.
That is, I think the
If
issue
it's a
is
cartel or whatever.
Yeah, like because the cartels are armed. There's a video of them carrying, automatic rifles. There were shootings on the border already. CBP is authorized to return fire. The federal law enforcement have guns. We're not talking about random dudes here. We're talking about federal law enforcement and National Guard that are armed. And so Trump sending them down to the border.
Well,
I suppose the issue that Dominic was bringing up is that we have sort of this like non-confrontational policy where we usually just retreat and hope they go away. And I don't know what we can expect, but at least internally, we're going to see what Trump has already done. The DEA and the ATF have been granted deportation powers.
Yep.
The Pentagon has confirmed Air Force aircraft will be used to deport illegal immigrants, and they're going to be staffed internally with federal law enforcement, not military. So the goal here from Trump and the administration is not to engage the military directly, but to use existing federal law enforcement with the resources of the military.
The Marines are there, fully armed, as if they were going on any other operation, as if they were being deployed anywhere else, with the authority. If you take fire, you are to return fire. That
But
is a
they
good
never
thing.
do.
Well, now I don't
know that they will.
They have not in the past. They haven't. But I mean, look, if you're sending, I don't know what the Marines are like. These particular guys.
The issue right here specifically is that operating on the border, I believe, still falls under posse comitatus. And so there have been, I guess, legal scholars stating that we expect not to see the U.S. military that's been deployed, which is, I believe, 1,000 Army and 500 Marines. They will not be engaging in ground operations. They're going to be providing intelligence, air support, but they won't be engaging directly. Federal law enforcement have been granted the authority to do so, specifically because posse comitatus, the military can't engage in enforcing domestic law. So,
like you guys have, I just don't understand, if you've got criminal gangs literally invading your country, right? And you've got them building tunnels and bringing in all sorts of drugs that could kill the population multiple times over.
That does kill the population.
That does, yeah. I mean, you lost like 80,000 people in a year. That's unbelievable numbers to lose over these drugs being smuggled into the country. At what point does it actually become a situation where you say, okay, this is an actual invasion? And I guess Trump is doing that now,
He declared,
which is good.
Invasive forces on the
But
southern border.
it just blows my mind that it hasn't happened yet.
You know, it's crazy because times are different, and we see these migrant caravans where you've got 2,000 people and they're carrying flags of their nation as they march towards the border. What do you think would happen if you went back to, like, I don't know, the 1200s or whatever? Let's do this. Let's go back to the Roman Empire, and a horde of 5,000 people flying the banner of another nation tried to march towards Rome. It would not go well for them.
No.
It would be war instantly. Now, because of, I believe largely of social media, there's no tolerance for any kind of violent action. And so when these migrant caravans are marching and they're flying flags of their home countries, the United States just says, welcome to America, I guess.
Looks like the Olympic opening ceremony.
But Donald Trump says you can stay in Mexico. I do not believe, I believe everyone agrees, and any reasonable person, you're not an asylum seeker if you travel through 12 countries to get to the United States. If you are from Mexico and you come to the southern border to escape gangs, okay, that makes sense. You can go south or you can go north. All right, you came to America. Okay, I guess let's figure it out. If you're from Canada, I can understand why you fled to America. Shout out to Viva Fry. We get it. But for people who came from Africa, it's like, bro, you could have stopped in Brazil. Brazil's awesome. So they fly to Brazil and then make their way up to the United States. Those aren't asylum seekers. So these people are not going to be allowed in. There's not going to be violence toward them. They're going to be physically removed. If they enter illegally, they're going to be deported. And it's really fascinating to me that Democrats are acting like this is the apocalypse when we're literally saying, hey, man, we didn't invite you over, but we'll give you a ride home. And they're like, oh, it's torture. It's so evil. And it's like, actually, it's kind of nice. You know, like one of your homies shows up to your house late at night and you're like, okay, I guess you can hang out for a little bit. And then you look at your watch and you're like, bro, it's time for you to go home, man. I'm going to give you a ride. And they're like, oh, you're kicking me out? Dude, it's like, yeah, I'm kicking you out and I'm giving you a ride home. It's the nicest thing I can do for you.
Yeah.
As far as Mexico go and a lot of these South American countries go, I think the bigger issue at play is that these are narco states and there is not enough political will, either domestic or there, to deal with it in a serious way because of the violence that it would bring. So neither here or in Mexico do they actually want to deal with the cartel in a serious manner, or they'll murder you.
Do you think they're in bed with the cartels?
Oh, definitely. And if they're not, then
they
they murder you. They murder the politicians that aren't in bed with the cartel. Same with the news journalists there.
Yeah.
Any legitimate criticisms to the cartel is they'll chase you down and murder you. And if we deal with them in a serious manner on our side of the border, then we'll see violence erupt. And I don't think the Americans have the stomach for this. And in Mexico, they'd rather cooperate with these cartels than
I'm saying if the will was there from Trump, for example, and if he said to Mexico, hey, listen, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. You guys have a military. You can mobilize your military. You're stronger than these cartels.
All of these
institutions,
they're not. All of the institutions in Mexico are deeply embedded by the cartel, and they will not go after them.
How do you think El Salvador did it?
They say in El Salvador that the guy there Trump says Bukele is working with the cartel.
So maybe with the cartel.
That's what Trump has said before.
I don't think he said that.
I think Trump's accusation that he was sending criminals to America.
He was releasing criminals who were coming to America.
Okay, so that's how he was dealing with them. Seems like a different deal if he's sending them to America.
But I mean, there's no doubt that there's big facilities with lots of high-ranking gang members in El Salvador, and they're locking them up there and they're punishing them severely. And that was the murder capital of the Western Hemisphere, and now it's not.
Sure. Well, it seemed like Mexico's going more left-leaning now with their new female president that they elected.
That's why you can't have female presidents.
There isn't the political will in Mexico to deal with the cartel issue at all.
So you're of the opinion that the United States wouldn't be able to do anything because the Mexican government wouldn't.
It's a narco state and
work
so
with
in
the
bed
US?
with the cartel. Yeah, it's hard to make deals
saying that the
with the
cartels are too
Mexicans
strong.
because the Mexicans are run by the cartels. And if we do deal with the issue head on, then we will face a lot of violence from the cartel,
do you think that the United States the U.S. wouldn't have the stomach to actually deal with the cartels because the cartels would have a lot of violence
that would follow? Yeah, unfortunately. Unless the cartel played nice, and then you'd have to make deals with the cartel.
Well, the cartel's
but they
not
are so
gonna play
deeply
nice.
ingrained in Mexico and different South American countries that they aren't going anywhere. The state of Mexico is run by the cartels and gang members.
I mean, all I hear you saying is that we need to do to Mexico.
Liberate Mexico?
We'll do to Mexico what we did in the Middle East. Because the United States military has shown that they are capable of dismantling terrorist organizations. And that's exactly what the cartels are. So if the United States has to go in and say, look, you're either going to handle the cartels or we're going to take you out of power. I think that's something that's actually on the table.
It's a lot of American blood to liberate Mexico, and if we do it, then I don't think we should ever
And also,
leave.
it's another situation where you're on away turf as well, big time.
When you what?
Like you're on away turf,
Way.
like in Vietnam as
Well,
well.
we're at home on
it's
the
not-
border
No,
here,
it's right on the
too.
border. It's not the same kind of a
Depends how
wager.
deep you want to go into America,
so-
because these also these drug cartels are all linked through South America. They go up through Chile and then up through Colombia and Peru and Ecuador and all the way up into Mexico as well.
I have a question. I have this tweet I want to pull up from End Wokeness. And they say, Rep AOC is now telling illegals to alert their networks when ICE is coming. In English, it says, this is from AOC's, presumably from AOC's Instagram. If you see ICE in public, confirm they're actually ICE and not a different agency. They may have ICE, ERO, or HSI on their vests. It says you have a right to record if you feel safe, take photos or videos, write on the time, date, and exact location of the encounter, timestamp when they show up and leave. Once verified, share the information with your networks. I have a question. Let's say there was like a roaming band of wanted bank robbers. They had robbed a bank, and their faces were up all over the city and on the TVs. And then you came out and said to all of your friends, if you see law enforcement, alert the criminals so that they can escape and protect themselves. If you were a part of these criminal gangs and someone came out and offered up advice for how you could subvert law enforcement to escape and not get arrested, I'm wondering if there's any codified laws in the books about aiding and abetting wanted criminals and providing them with information so they can escape law enforcement.
Censure.
If she's an accessory to any of the crimes that she commits, maybe we could subpoena any of these networks that she's in. It sounds like people who we should be going after.
Censored just for posting that.
If I'm a Venezuelan gang member, this sounds like the type of networking groups I want to be in. And I guess I'm thankful that Tom Homan takes ICE law and his job there at ICE seriously to follow through with what...
Even if there was one legit example of what she was saying, then she could probably get away with posting something like that and she couldn't actually be linked to it. But people who were actually aiding and abetting now can say, oh, well, I saw AOC's post.
I am of the zero tolerance mind. This is not, AOC is not a lawyer. She's not providing legal advice. Granted, she's not directing a specific individual, which is probably where the protection will come in for First Amendment. I've been asking this question. At a certain point, there's going to be obstruction. There's going to be accessory, conspiracy behind some of these actions. If a lawyer is giving legal advice, I get it. People are all entitled to legal advice. But if activists are going to wanted criminals who are being sought out for arrest, and they're informing them of how to escape, that's accessory, isn't it? Or, I mean, like, that's why it's the bank robber thing. Imagine if you saw the cops coming and you knew somebody was a bank robber and you whispered, like, hey, drop your stuff and go hide. The police are coming. They're going to find you. Go run that way. They're going to say you obstructed justice or you aided and abetted a criminal. I don't understand why we're tolerating that. And I'm not talking about the legal asylees. We're talking about MS-13, that this information is being used to protect criminal gangs and cartel members.
Yeah. I think there should be ramifications. There should be consequences. She should be censured. She should lose all of her committee appointments and stuff like that. But the Democrats don't actually take any of this stuff seriously because, you know, they're the party of law and order. They get upset because the January 6th rioters were released. Some of them did some bad stuff. But this is perfectly fine.
Imagine
it's
if the
perfectly
shoe was
fine.
on the other foot and there was a Republican saying this about the J6s.
Oh yeah, it's insane. This is exactly the same type of behavior that the vice president engaged in when there were the riots, the George Floyd riots.
Yeah, Kamala Harris sent up a bail fund,
helping to bail them out.
A bail
So
fund.
this is unquestionably she should be brought up on charges for this, in my opinion, aiding and abetting. You know, obviously that won't happen, but the Democrats are in no position to criticize, you know, the release of the J6 prisoners or anything, because this is the exact kind of thing they do. These people are here illegally. They've broken the law, and ICE is trying to round them up. When she says that people should try to interfere, that's trying to interfere with a duly designated.
The whole fake ICE thing is like a sleight of hand that she's played there in order to tell people, hey, listen, if ICE are trying to round you up or people that you know up, get out of there. But you can say, oh, there's fake ICE people.
They should all go to. She should go to jail.
I feel like this is gearing up for what will be the first thing that the left pushes back against Trump hard on in his first 100 days. It's going to be a lot of this immigration stuff and deportation stuff. We're going to see the recycled old lines of keeping kids in cages. We're going to see AOC do another photo op where she's dressed in all white, crying on a cage. So different things like this is what we should be expecting to see in the next month or two. And this is her just going through the motions.
And remember, this is something the American people want. This is a popular thing that's happening. Like, the American people want to see people that are here illegally rounded up and sent home. And she is doing this because it's not about her base or anything, or the people that voted for her. It's about the ideological position of the left.
They want to see the Laken-Riley Act enforced, which I believe we will see be the first law that Trump signs.
Absolutely amazing that Ro Khanna was like, he voted against it because it allows the deportation of an individual simply for being arrested. And it's like, but when they're here illegally, yes. It's like, okay, why are we going to give them a trial and then deport them after the fact? Like, an illegal immigrant comes in, we catch them committing a burglary, they get arrested, and then we go, no. We're going to deport them anyway, but spend the money on a trial first, and then we'll deport them afterwards, regardless of the outcome. That makes no sense.
And that's the thing with the murderer of Laken Riley. This was an illegal immigrant who was arrested multiple times in multiple different states, and then ended up doing heinous crimes, and then obviously
it's like when the left in America say no person is illegal except for every single person who crossed the border illegally.
I just put in the Slack, Tim, someone posted, Brian Crandall from NBC 10 on X, FBI Homeland Security agents raid office of well-known Providence immigration lawyer.
Whoa. Well, there we go. This is it. Take a look at this video. HSI, it says.
Yeah. So,
is that like Homeland Security Investigations or something?
I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we need to
Winchester Investment Securities. What does it say here? It says Molina Flynn Law Office. Joseph Molina. Looks like they might be serving some papers or something. Do they have a piece of paper in his hand? Look at that. Is that a notebook? What does he got right there? You see in his hand?
Yeah.
I wonder if they've got some kind of warrant.
Don't know. But yeah, I mean, this is what should happen to all lawyers that in any way, get in the way of a duly deputized federal employee or whatever. Rounding people up. This is exactly what should happen. There should be repercussions for AOC. Anyone in Congress that is helping to prevent people from being deported, there should be actual legal consequences.
And AOC would
at
actually
this
be
response.
fine in prison.
Half of the restaurants in Providence will be closing in the next few days. 75% of the cooking and cleaning staff are illegals. NYC's restaurants will be closing as well. Okay.
It's fine. It's cold out. It's fine.
I say, okay. Like, yeah. I don't understand this argument they're making where it's like a bunch of criminals have broken the law, but they cook and clean.
Like, we need more oxtail.
It's insane.
Do you think they allow contracting for illegal immigrants in New York City in these restaurants?
Yep. That's been the worst thing about all of this is the special protections for illegal immigrants and the penalties on legal citizens and immigrants. The fact that in New York they were putting up illegal immigrants in hotels with some reportedly at PlayStations, and Gen Z is like, I wish I can afford to get a bachelor apartment. You know what a bachelor apartment is? No bathroom. And this is what Gen Z is trying to rent. Meanwhile, illegal immigrants are getting luxury hotels converted for them.
It's funny how it's the exact same playbook in the United States as it is in the UK as well. Have you seen what they do for the immigrants in the UK? They'll give them like a loaded visa card. They'll give them dental work, luxury hotels. And then if anyone ever complains about the immigrants, it's like, oh, well, they make curry.
Well, your national dish over there is what? Chicken tikka masala. So.
Yeah, well, you don't
butter
like butter chicken.
or...
Butter chicken.
Butter chicken isn't even India. You go to India, you can't get a butter chicken.
That's right. It's British.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a uniquely British dish.
I mean, try eating Chinese food in China. I mean,
it's disgusting over there.
It's bad.
It's amazing.
Real proper Chinese food here.
I went to Taiwan last year, and it was the grossest market I've ever been. Like, no offense, Chinese and Taiwanese people, but the grossest food.
What, did you get the gutter oil?
I didn't get anything in the end. I just walked through it, and I was like,
You know about the gutter oil, right?
oh, I've seen that how they reuse it.
They strain oil out of the sewers to reuse.
Yeah. Ugh, it's just gross. You can kind of smell it when you go there.
That's why they say don't eat street food in China.
That's why the bat soup at the beginning of COVID was so like believable. You know, people were just like, yeah, it was a bat soup, and they would do that.
People need to understand the size of cities in China as well. I mean, 1 billion plus people. They've got
Eat what you can.
New Yorks all over the place. You know, so these are big cities.
Yep.
But excuse me, I'm curious. My concern with watching lawyers get served and stuff is what point does it go too far?
I guess we need to really know exactly what's going on here beyond the caption reading FBI.
Well, I mean, just like hypothetically, like
of an immigration lawyer, who knows? Maybe he was defending.
I don't want to see. I don't want to see lawyers arrested, but there's a reality of you can't hide behind being a lawyer to commit crimes, right? You know, like Better Call Saul. It's like this dude was aiding and abetting a meth dealer. That was the point of, like, in Breaking Bad. We're not going to be like, but he's a lawyer, so we can't do anything about it. It's like, nah, he was the criminal who was aiding and abetting serious crimes.
Do they sign some sort of like a Hippocratic oath when they get into
lawyers
as well?
Swearing to do no harm? I don't believe so.
No. Or some. What do the doctors sign?
Oh, lawyers do have one. It's that they promise to be liars and
they promise to not go after one another. That's the quote among lawyers.
What's the one that the doctors sign when they
Hippocratic oath?
Yeah. Lawyers don't have nothing like that.
I don't think so.
Oh, I mean, well, they should.
They might have something. I don't know. Cops swear to uphold the Constitution.
Yeah, it's so funny in America. I don't know if you guys realize how, you probably do because you've traveled a fair bit, but when you come to America and you switch on the TV, it's like, did somebody brush past you in the street? Do you want to like sue them? It's like everywhere.
Have you driven through any major city recently?
Yeah.
Every billboard is personal injury lawyers.
Yeah.
And it's just
everywhere.
like, let's sue.
We're a very litigious country. We love the law here.
Do you want to screw somebody over? Call Brian John.
But then you see those videos where there's one viral one that's going around where there's a car driving on the highway with a dash cam. A car pulls in front and then slams the brakes on, and the car stops, and then the car in front goes forward and then reverses and slams right into it. And then the people come out going like, oh, it hurts. I guess they got arrested for it. It was a big story.
Dude, have you seen the one in China where there's a law in China where if you hit somebody with your car and then they're injured, then they can sue you. But if you kill them, then they can't do anything.
That's right.
So there's all these videos of people just like reversing over them and
finish them off.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's you'll be responsible for the cost for the rest of their life. So they'd rather get a murder charge, which could be like a few years, than get life.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Just be on the hook.
Reverse incentive.
Yeah.
That's the thing about law, man. People need to understand how it's applied. There's that famous story of, I forgot which country it was, might have been India, where they had a snake problem. And so the local government, I think it was the British government in India, and they were like, bring us the heads of the snakes and we'll pay you for them. So local Indians started breeding the snakes because they were worth money to the government now, and it made the problem worse.
It's like Mao with the sparrows in China as well, trying to get rid of the sparrows and then and leading
They'll
to
starve to
famine.
death.
Yeah.
That's right. Let's jump to this story from the Post. A millennial advisor for Biden White House admits deep state is real, says bureaucracy could crush Trump's pick for HHS. In this latest release from James O'Keefe, this guy basically says the deep state is real. They're going to obstruct RFK Jr. They're going to use phony commissions to investigate things and then never actually do what they're told to do. This is what the deep state is. It is holdovers. It is politically minded bureaucrats who are doing everything they can, to obstruct. We recently saw the ATF. They changed the title of their chief diversity officer to senior executive, and they're doing that to hide these people in the government. There's only one solution. Trump's got to fire everybody.
Everybody GS-13 and higher, at least.
Yeah. But what do you do? I mean, how do you prove the people you hire to replace them aren't going to be secretly woke and trying to subvert the country?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have an answer. But the evidence is that the people that are ideologically possessed in the government are not going to be easy to get out. Like, they're going to lie. They're going to do whatever they can to hide their actual intentions. And
so do we think that Trump is going to succeed in his efforts, despite the fact that we see these videos where the deep state's like, yeah, we exist, we're going to keep doing it?
Well, like we were talking the other night with Angela, like, it's one thing to get it would be one thing to have a libertarian or someone that's really good as the head of a cabinet level position, secretary, right? But it's probably better to have 7 or 10 people in the upper management that are of the same mind as you, so they can monitor the other people around, turn them in if they're breaking the rules. Because if you're just the head, you're delegating authority, but you have, just like with Trump's first term, he had problems with the people that he hired. If you get people that are in the bureaucracy and you get good people that are not head of the department or the secretary level, but they're actually the administrative level, those people can do more to make good policy and make sure that the policy that the president wants is actually being implemented.
I think this guy's getting a little bit ahead of himself because I don't even foresee RFK Jr. getting confirmed as HHS secretary. Really? Yeah, he's way too radical on abortion for, I think, we only have 53 Republican senators right now. I think they'll be able to pick off a few. Mike Pence is trying to knock off a few. RFK Jr. has said he supports abortion.
Thune has said that he's got the votes.
Even if it's full term.
Thune has said that he's got the votes.
For RFK Jr.? Even
Thune has said that he's got the votes for everybody.
Okay, well, I guess we'll see about... I think him and Tulsi Gabbard are a little bit on thin ice. Hegseth lost Murkowski, but you need to lose 3 to be out of the running because they have a 3-seat majority.
Getting elected?
Well, Murkowski's not a
Susan Collins is in a purple area.
Same thing with Collins.
These are people on the edges, but I was surprised RFK even got the nomination following what he said in the past about abortion and stuff like that. So we'll see how this goes, but I think this guy's getting a little bit ahead of himself.
Trump was pretty clear when he said that we're going to leave RFK to do what he does best, to sort of disentangle the big entrenched pharma cartel, but we're going to leave the environmental stuff away and everything. So will he have much of a say with abortion?
He will have some say because he'll still be HHS secretary, but the bigger hurdle is getting past the pro-life Republicans in the Senate.
But Trump's left it to the states, right? Meaning that federally he won't have much to do with abortion, but it will be up to the states.
I still think HHS will be involved in some of the legal processes, but even before he gets that far, it'll be the pro-life Republicans in the Senate who I think would block the confirmation.
But will it affect the abortion laws, though? Because I
think it'll have some effect over abortion law at HHS. I mean, it is the Department of Health and Human Services.
Leaving it to the state, then I think that he would have foreseen that because he wouldn't want a radical like RFK on abortion having anything to do with the abortion.
Well, it was quid pro quo. It was, if you drop out and help me, I'll give you a position on the cabinet. So politics aside.
And remember when RFK Jr. said that he reached out to Kamala as well and they snubbed him?
Didn't even answer him, yeah.
I think the people that if there is anyone that is likely to not get confirmed, I don't think HHS is the one. Because honestly, I think that it would be like Kash Patel at the FBI, Hegseth. I think it would be people that are part of the intelligence apparatus dealing with foreign policy, as opposed to the people that
I think it's people who hold. Gabbard. I think it's funny because I kind of think the opposite. I think it's Republicans who hold grudges against people who used to be Democrats that might stop them from getting over the line. So, for example, some people in the national security apparatus don't like how Tulsi Gabbard cozied up and met with Bashar al-Assad in Syria when he was still in power there. This abortion issue is a huge issue for Republicans across the board in the South, especially the abortion issue. Those people are the ones I don't really foresee getting. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't think that I think the Republicans understand that Trump has basically a mandate. At least on the Republican side, they're of the opinion that Trump has a mandate and they feel like they need to get on board. The only people that I think don't hold that opinion are people like Murkowski and Collins that don't have to worry about pleasing their Republican base. I think that they have to.
It's ironic because Thune is actually going to be appearing tomorrow at the March for Life in D.C. while he's allegedly going to try to whip up votes for an HHS secretary who will likely be the most pro-life one, at least that a Republican's ever appointed in office. So
yeah, I think on a federal level the abortion question has been largely answered, and it's back down to the states. And I think that Republicans in the Senate and stuff are like, thank goodness I don't have to worry about that too much, because they can just say, well, it's a state level thing, so you have to worry about your state legislature.
That's one that you
They
guys
have cover.
That's one that you guys will never resolve with civil discussion and discourse.
Oh no, people love fundraising money on both sides. That's part of why I don't think it'll ever get resolved.
But also, it's because the pro-abortionists are possessed by demon spirits.
Democrats raise so much money based off of this issue alone. It's one of their biggest platform policies that they even have.
Yeah.
What did the Democrats run on in the past election? Women's rights was the top issue that most of the women cared about, and their base are becoming more and more feminine.
It's 50-year-old women that have gone through menopause that can't have kids that are making a stink
A
about
lot
it,
of
'cause
young
they're like,
women
"Oh,
are
the young
Democrats
women-"
because of abortion, I think.
It actually
In my
is.
experience,
It is the
definitely.
case, unfortunately, because what do you get sold these days if you're a young woman? You get sold a bill of don't need no man, be independent, don't have kids, it's bad for the environment, and you want to have like a job with a fluffy little notepad. And
The solution to the abortion question isn't convincing young women that they shouldn't get abortions. It's convincing young men and women that they need to get married and have kids.
I think the solution to the abortion problem is legislation and only legislation.
I don't agree. I think when your country requires things to be written down, your culture is already collapsing, and we've got an OnlyFans problem, and it's not just a problem of women doing it; it's of men paying for it.
Yeah. How would you? Solve that?
I know that I'd be willing to bet there are a ton of guys out there who will go on X and post things about virtue, and they're buying OnlyFans.
But how would you solve that though? Would you outlaw it? Would you outlaw OnlyFans, or would you disincentivize it?
You need cultural reformation, and that can only be done through the will of the people and the decisions of those to break their addictions. So, like I said, I bet there's a lot of people who go on X every day and say things like, women should be mothers. We don't need women in the military, and they're buying OnlyFans.
But even
they're paying women for this. They're enabling and creating the culture by which women have quit their jobs to go do porn instead.
I don't think it's an issue for the state to resolve.
But even
it's an issue
even if
for
so, though, even if
culture.
they are doing that, and that these men they have this double standard that they hold, what actually is the solution? Do you think that it's cultural incentivization, or do you think that it's actually legislating these things, or a mixture
No,
of both?
like I already said, you can't legislate this stuff away.
You can't ban porn?
You absolutely. I mean, you can try to, but look what happens with marijuana. Marijuana was banned. Everyone still does it. Alcohol was banned. Everyone still got it.
To ban nudes, you can't take pictures of yourself.
Yeah, the issue is always going to be, will your culture tolerate these things? So this idea that we're simply going to say, arrest people who do it won't change the fact that people will just end up doing it illegally. You need cultural reformation, and that is ridiculously hard to accomplish, but it's the only way to put a stop to these things is if on shows like this and on other platforms, people are shaming. We need to bring back shame to as hard a degree as possible. If a dude gets caught buying OnlyFans, he is mocked relentlessly in public.
I agree.
Shame.
Well, it needs to be such that we raise people who wouldn't want to access and pay for it. But just from the legal side, I don't even really know in a pragmatic way how we would actually do it. It's like, if you take a naked picture of yourself, we're going to send police to your house to arrest you.
But it's not even if you take a naked picture of yourself, it's if you distribute that naked picture on the internet.
Then we're going to send police to arrest
We
you.
legislate against drink driving, for example.
And people and right. And the issue.
But wait, these aren't the same. Drunk driving and
Yeah, I know,
taking
but it's an aspect of drinking. So if you're going to talk about drinking and
you are
marijuana
not
and
going
drugs and
to
everything,
ban the dark web. You are not going to demand the state through force and a practice that people can easily access through VPNs. It's going to keep happening. We need shame, cultural reformation.
I agree with that.
How much cleavage are you allowed to show before we're sending the cops after you?
Well, I think
to
that
arrest
there's a pretty easy line there, which is just nip.
Nip,
You know?
okay.
If you
But areola's
slip
cool?
the nip,
Is areola cool? Or
What about men?
just
Can
doing
men
that?
slip the nip?
Yeah, of course. It's different.
Well, now you got a violation of the Civil Rights Act.
Look, I'm not saying that nip slips need to be sort of banned, but if you're having sexual intercourse on camera and if it's being distributed to children, should you be liable for that?
By all means, you can legislate to ban porn, and it will curtail a decent amount of it, but it's not going to change the culture. Like the way. So by all means, I'm not saying it's ineffective completely. People will still absolutely do these things. They'll just do it illegally. But you need a cultural reformation that is accomplished through people willing to be to shame others. Enough of this like live and let live failed liberalism. It's like, hey, look, I don't care what you do. Nah, I care what you do, because we all wanted to live in this world. I did when I grew up, where it's like, hey, man, you do your thing and I'm going to mind my own business. And then they started giving porn to kids. And it's like, can I please ask you to stop? And they said, no. And then when we were like, okay, then we're going to ban these books, they threw bricks through windows. So it's like, okay, we really can't tolerate this stuff. There's got to be an accepted moral framework by which we just say, yeah, we don't tolerate this. And how do you deal with it? You shame people. You don't need violence. You don't need brute force. You can try to start this process. Maybe it would be effective to a certain degree to ban these things, because it would result in a reduction across the board. And then you can shame those who would do something, who would continue to do so. But really, the most powerful motivator is when young people are ridiculed for doing bad things. So you look at the effect that Instagram and TikTok has on teenagers, and if they don't get enough likes, they get depressed. And they try to follow the trends because they're trying to fit in. Imagine what would happen if somebody posted on a platform and people found out that they had bought an OnlyFans subscription, and all their comments were filled with ha 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 ha, unfollowed, you're a loser, you're nasty, you're a loser. These people would never do it again. They'd be like, no way, man.
100% agree with you on the cultural implications, and there being shame, and there being an incentivization towards the nuclear family and towards people being virtuous. However, when I do look at the industry of porn, when you look at it holistically and you sort of zoom out on it, this is the reason for so much human trafficking in the world. It's the reason why CP is made. And if you're looking at purely from a utilitarian point of view, the damage is unbelievable with this industry. So, I mean, I can really see a case where we would have much stricter laws on these things in the West. And also,
I don't.
There's been studies done that show that the countries that are more liberal about it, like Holland and these sort of Northern European countries, they tend to have much larger industries and much larger influxes of human trafficking.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I do think we should legislate. I do, but I think it's important to stress that when you get to the point in society where you're writing things down to make sure people don't do it, you have an immoral society.
Yep,
and there's massive failing there. However, I do think OnlyFans is abhorrent, and I think the big problem we have to start with, we can talk about whether we ban something like this or not. The problem right now is that even X allows porn. Okay, this is basically saying, if a child walks out, if a child walks out into the middle of New York City and someone gets buck naked, yeah, they'll arrest the person because there's obscenity, there's decency laws. On the internet, however, a child can log in at 14 years old, young teenager, and go on X and see radical, insane fetish porn, and it's allowed. I think we should pass legislation that says if X, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, I don't care, Instagram, if they allow access in any way to adult content or graphic content to children, then they will be penalized criminally like any other company.
What about Pornhub then? Because Pornhub has had many different instances in the past where they've had children who have been on there for weeks.
Yep.
CP. It's got millions of views and millions of impressions.
And they should be criminally penalized.
I
for
agree.
That. And they've already had numerous states enact ID requirements where Pornhub's been like, oh, why are they making us require IDs? Because the adult bookstore down the street doesn't let kids in, and neither should you.
Yep.
I was going to follow up in like the real world pragmatic practice of this is that in something like 15 odd states now, Pornhub ended up blocking service because those states were pushing forth laws that required, I believe, state IDs to prove they're above 18 to access their website. I think that's a sort of sensible regulation. I don't think banning is the proper direction to go, but something like more regulation around access, especially for kids, as we advance into such a technologically savvy environment where these kids probably know more about tech than we do.
I want to jump to this next story, which is a bit more personal. Ladies and gentlemen, we are leaving West Virginia. I regret coming to this state. It's my fault. I didn't do proper research, and I didn't think I would have had to have done research in this field. But, look, let me put it this way. First, I want to apologize to my friends in West Virginia who work in governance, who are desperately trying to find some way to rectify the issues the state has. And unfortunately, I will tell you, the fact that it has come to me discussing this in the first place means that we are well past this. West Virginia's tax laws are psychotic. They require itemization of all objects you own, including your chairs and pens, and it's just ridiculous. And I can say this, if I am wrong about any of this, then it's actually easier than all of that. We're being harassed by the state, so I'm leaving. And so I've had a lot of conversations with people who work in local government, because of course we're friends with some of these people, and I've informed them every step of the way, I will never will there be a time where Tim Pool makes a phone call to the government and says, I, Tim Pool, want you to do a favor for me. Never going to happen. I won't go to a building and demand special treatment. I won't try and enter a club and be like, I'm Tim. Never going to do it. And so as we've encountered these these ridiculous business regulations and hurdles. I have largely just said, well, it's the nature of business. And I've been like, well, I don't like that. I don't like this. We've come to a crux, however, in that I have recently discovered that in 2021, West Virginia effectively banned individual contracting. I am so deeply offended by that move. I regret ever coming to this state and putting any money into it. It is on par with, we have this here from Investopedia, what California did with AB 5, and it's why we largely do not work with anyone based in California. Very few things motivate me to such rage, and this is one of them. This has to do with the gig economy, and West Virginia followed California in basically saying that if you are an individual who wants to do work in any capacity, you must register as a business first or be an employee, taking away the rights of individuals to choose when and how they work. And I am shocked and offended that West Virginia put this law in place in June of 2021, right before we started our expansion. So had I done my proper research, I would have easily seen that West Virginia was banning contracting, and I would have said we will never go near this state. And so we've run into this because we have talent contracts. And there's reasons why we have contractors versus employees. There's a difference. Due to the nature of contract law, there are certain legal requirements we have with employees pertaining to intellectual property and disclosure and things like this. And it's nothing to do with like, you know, there's a lot of people out there who are they think NDAs, non-disparagements, and non-disclosures are because companies have secrets. Yes, sir, sometimes. For us, it's because we have movie ideas. It's because we have songs that have not been released. It's because we have technological advancements and plans for a media company. And with that, employees are held to a different standard than contractors. Why? Certain contractors already work for other companies, but we want to share talent. Certain contractors have a list of personal intellectual property that we would never negotiate ownership of, creating a distinction between when someone's a contractor and someone's an employee. Well, we are getting heat from the state because we have people like who drafted a report on like, I'm not going to get into too much nitty gritty on this, but we've been butting heads with the state because, for instance, a single individual who doesn't own a business said, I can help you draft a report on X. And we were like, that would actually be really helpful for us expanding our business. And the state came down and said, how dare you contract an individual? And we were confused. We were like, what do you mean? It's an individual who lives in West Virginia who offered to do some work over the weekend for us to literally just draft a report on a certain issue. And they said, that's not allowed in this state. That's illegal. And we were like, what? And so we began looking into this, and sure enough, that's West Virginia's new law, the Employment Law Worker Classification Act, which uses the excuse of Uber and other BS to create absolutely psychotic provisions as to what constitutes an employee or a contractor, which restricts our ability to do work with top talent. So if I go to a famous individual and say, we want to contract you for a series of shows or whatever, can't do it. Because they're going to be an employee so long as we require locations. Like, I'll put it this way. Timcast IRL can't have contracted talent because online conversations can be hosted from a remote location. And if we require them to be in the studio, that's an employment restriction. And now they're employees. But if they're employees, we're required to give them our company policy employee contract, which creates ownership of IP. It is an absolute disaster. And so I can show you some of these stupid garbage that's in this thing. The form that was sent to us from the government. Check this out. How to determine whether or not someone's an employee or a contractor. If a worker has the right to quit at any time without incurring liability, this indicates an employer-employee relationship. Well, we have a company policy with HR requirements. We cannot have policies that are not uniform. So if we apply it to one employee, it has to apply to all. So if we hire an employee for creative work and say that if you produce a creative work, we own the rights to that. That's what we've hired you for. That would have to apply to anyone who falls under this criteria. So we have independent contractors. We say, hey, we want you to only do one specific thing because we don't want to buy out the rest of your IP or anything related to the work you do. Can't do it. Because if the individual has a right to leave at any moment, they're now an employee, and we must implement our uniform employee policy on everyone, making it impossible to work in the state. And don't get me wrong, it's not just West Virginia, it's also California and a bunch of other states that are doing this. The reason why this makes me so angry is because while the law may be constructed in such a way that says something like, No. It's only if certain criteria within this are met. There's ways around it. Simply set a term. If you want to contract someone, set a timeline. Okay, so now I have to have everyone under term contracts. Congratulations to all Timcast contractors. You are now not allowed to work for anyone else for this amount of time. We don't do that. Well, they're requiring us to do that, and I refuse. I believe these moves that are passing in California and West Virginia and a bunch of other states are intended to push forward the you will live in the pod and you will eat the bugs world, where guess what? If you are a man or a woman, whatever, if you're a person and you live in your house and in your spare time you build a birdhouses, and eventually some guy notices it and says, hey, would you like to build some birdhouses for me, for my company? Can't do it. Either they're employees or they're contractors, because the work has to fall under rigid guidelines. In West Virginia, one of those is an individual who wants to do work must be a registered business entity. That's right. The state has personally informed us that if you are an individual in West Virginia, you have no right to contract your work. Period. You have to form a business. You have to get a license to do it. You have to ask the state permission to be able to mow someone's lawn. Now, I've had phone calls from a ton of people being like, please, Tim, don't do this. It's embarrassing for the state. And I apologize because I know the state was largely run by Democrats for a long time. And just recently, we've had a change of the administration, but it's going to take them years to sort this stuff out. And they are trying to place enforcement action against us, telling us we are not allowed to contract people. So we've already had to go through our entire list and be like, guys, Maryland didn't make us do this. We didn't even realize this was a law. And that's our fault. So we're going to have to pay the penalties and pay what we have to pay. But from this point forward, if you want to do any work with us, you must be a corporation registered in West Virginia with a license. Come back to us when you have it. And if you operate outside of the state, same thing applies. This is absolutely offensive. So let me tell you about what happened with California with what their AB5 bill is. Vox.com, they had a website called SB Nation. California said because of the gig economy and the exploitation of contractor work, we're passing a law that says after a certain amount of gigs, you're officially an employee. So what happened? A bunch of people, how freelance writing works. Somebody will write an article and then they'll send it to some people they know in media and say, hey, would you want to buy this article? I just wrote it. A company will then be like, yeah, we'll give you $100 for it. What happened after AB5 passed is that all these media companies terminated all of their freelance contractors. But understand what this means. This means that people in California who of their own volition produce an artistic work are now barred from selling it to media companies because the state has put a restriction on those companies saying, if you purchase a certain amount of these products, you must employ the individual. That means the individual doesn't have the choice to be an independent contractor anymore. They are required now to be an employee of someone else's company. Maybe they don't want to be. Maybe they're like, I don't want to work for that guy. I do my own work in my own house on my own laptop, and then I choose who I sell to. No. And then when you become an employee of another company, they're going to have corporate policies saying you can't work for anybody else. And that effectively ends the careers of individuals. What this is, California, West Virginia, and again, many other states, they are moving to ban the right of individuals to do work for money. And it is one of the most offensive things imaginable to me. And for this, this is the straw on the camel's back. There's a lot of other problems that I can deal with. We wanted to make West Virginia great, but this one is offensive to me and my moral framework. This is, you will live in the pot and eat the bugs. You will work for Walmart, not the mom and pop shop. Because who has the ability to navigate these laws? Massive multinational corporations. That is the world they're trying to build. So I'm done. They say in this, AB5 was designed to regulate companies hiring gig workers. So what? If I use an app to communicate and decide I want to drive today and pick someone up and drop them off, I'm not an employee of Uber. Simply because technology has changed, they have now taken away your right to be an individual who wants to do work. So let me break it down. If I want some local and I said, hey, I got some weeds growing by my house. You want to take care of them for me? The law in West Virginia puts the liability on me personally as the hiring individual to check that this person has a registered business and license to operate in West Virginia. Not interested. That's my rant on that. That's why we're leaving. And I don't know. A bunch of states are adopting this. It's insane. When we operated out of Maryland, this never was an issue. And the fact that West Virginia is choosing to take enforcement action against us offends me. It is disrespectful. And, I got to be honest, this is largely why I think it's been impossible to get the anti-Times Square thing moving. Nobody will open businesses in this state, and I think it's their own fault. And we are now intent on divesting as quickly as humanly possible. So I know that there are people in the legislature, they've been trying to talk to me. I know someone tweeted the government was trying to reach out to me. Look, with respect, that should not be the case. That a small business in the state is now barred from hiring a contractor unless, and get this, it's going to cost you $300 to go through the registration too. If you want to mow someone's lawn, spend the $300 to register with the state first because they've taken away your right to do work. It's insane. And it should not be the case that because I have a large show and some sort of influence that I get special access to government. And I told them this, I will never ask for a favor. If this is how you run your state, I will not be here and I will not do business here. And the reality is a lot of states do business like this. It is corrupt, it is evil, and I won't stand for it. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on that one before we go to Super Chats.
F them.
You're screwing us, West Virginia governance. I admire that you're unwilling to accept help from the government, accept special treatment, rather. Like, that's an admirable thing. Because many people in your shoes would be talking to the governor or talking to the congressman, all of the local, all of them would love to be on your good side. So they're politically interested, obviously, in scratching your back.
This is normal. It is normal for an 8-figure company with several dozen employees to contact local governance and say, give me special treatment. That's what they all do. I despise that our government is built of this, but maybe I'm just naive. Maybe this is the way it has always been and always will be, because how else could it be? You run a business, you build up to a certain size. The state wants your tax revenue. They want you to move people here. They want you to, in our instance, proselytize the greatness of West Virginia. And my option is, okay, I will publicly claim we are happy with the state's laws and regulations and encourage other people to come here because you've given me a favor. I won't do that. So I told them, I with respect, I appreciate they're trying to help, but I am offended at how the state runs itself. They can choose not to enforce these things for the time being and call a special legislative session to abolish these ridiculous and psychotic draconian laws that strip the rights away from working class people. But I'm not going to take a favor from them, nor am I going to go on my show or go on X and be like, everything's great. What a great place to be. Nah, look, we've run into roadblocks and hurdles with regulation in the state already. Their tax laws are psychotic. Everyone complains about it. They require you to itemize literally everything you have. And I was talking to our accountant. I'm like, our chairs, like a folding chair that costs $10? Yep. It's got to be listed, itemized. You got to pay taxes on it. I got to pay property tax on a folding chair? Yes, you do. And I was like, man, that's ridiculous. But okay, like, I understand. I tolerate that. I don't tolerate this. This is 2030 agenda garbage that says because technology advanced and we must get access to your tax revenue. Let me put it this way. The real reason they say for these bills in California and West Virginia is because Uber is misclassifying employees wrong. It's because they want payroll taxes and they don't want to lose revenue. But if that were really the case, then they would simply go after people who don't pay their taxes. If someone comes to me and says, I can draw you a beautiful picture of a chicken, and I say, I would like to hire you to draw that chicken picture, they have to be a registered business entity. And there's a bunch of other restrictions pertaining to whether they're a contractor or they're an employee. And one of them is like, here's another one. Here's a big one. If we contract someone, they have the legal right to hire someone else to do that job. So if I contract someone who's talented to do hosting on IRL, they have a legal right to send a random person I don't know to do the job. That's what the law. That's what they sent us. That's what it says. And I'm like, well, that can't be the case. And they're like, well, then if you have a singular individual who appears on a regular scheduling basis, they must be under employment law. And your company policies, as per how employment works, have to be uniform. And I'm just like, okay, so we're shutting the company down. F you. It's not happening. Like, we're leaving. That's the only thing we can do. And so there's temporary stopgap measures, but it's insane that they're doing this. I believe this is largely attached to the you will live in the pot and eat the bugs. I believe it largely flies under the radar because West Virginia implementing these laws doesn't really affect anybody of consequence to generate something like this news until us. California did this, and it created a huge media splash because it resulted in I think, was it like 300 people got fired from Vox or something like this? Hundreds of people lost their writing jobs. That made big news when journalists lost their job and tweeted up a storm saying, I just got fired because of this law, which was a bit ironic considering this was pushed by unions and Democrats in the state. We're not seeing the news on all of the states that are implementing bans on individual contracting because most people it doesn't hit the news the same way like a burning building does. But what's going to happen in 10 years? Kids are going to grow up and be like, what do you mean? It's normal to not be allowed to work. The only way you can get a job is if a company offers you employment. This is the way it's always been.
Yep.
It should be that I can walk up to a lot and say, hey, I'll give you $5 to do a thing for me. Just make sure you pay your taxes. Not anymore. They're banning that all over the country. Our lawyer was telling us hey, these laws are popping up everywhere. They are outright making it so that if you are an individual, you can't work. Mm-hmm. You have to be the employee of Walmart. You want to open a mom and pop shop? Good luck. We banned those during COVID, but Walmart got special provisions. Anyway.
I wonder if any of the migrants are having any trouble working in West Virginia, huh?
Hey, I doubt it. That reference to the story about the FBI agents. FBI agents raid a building in Providence. Central Falls judge resigns. What we know it looks like, the judge himself, I put it in the Slack if you want to take a look. It looks like the judge himself was an illegal immigrant.
What?
Yeah.
I think you'd have to be a citizen to be appointed to a judge.
FBI agents raid a building in Providence. Central Falls judge resigns. This is a court-authorized activity. What does it specifically say about the judge?
A little bit higher. Melina Flynn was the first openly gay person,
right?
Formerly undocumented person to serve on the bench.
He's formerly undocumented. So he was given some kind of clemency, I guess.
Are they getting rid of him because he's undocumented or because he's gay?
He's formerly undocumented.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Let's go to Super Chats, my friends. We'll read what y'all have to say. Don't forget to smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Become a member over at timcast.com to support our work directly, especially now that we're going to be moving. And I put up a poll saying Texas, Florida, Tennessee, or New Hampshire. And Texas is the winner, but it's awfully hot. And their laws aren't so good either, to be completely honest. I put that up not because we intended to go to any of those states, but it was because I wanted to see what people thought. And those are the most popular states. Although a lot of people are saying, Missouri and stuff. We did talk about Wisconsin. Because being from Chicago, we know the area, we like the weather, and I would like to build something in Chicago because it's where I'm from, family and things like that. But Chicago is so corrupt. Yeah, it's never going to happen.
Anywhere you go is going to be corrupt, though. I don't know. Can it get much worse than here?
West Virginia's actually pretty good. The problem is that it's chaotic, and they know not what they do. But I'm hearing that Tennessee there's a reason why everyone's moving there. So a bunch of people hit me up, prominent conservatives from all over the country said they're moving to Tennessee because the laws are actually really good.
Good property market as well.
Yeah.
No income tax.
No income tax. The property values are skyrocketing because everyone wants to move there. And I'm looking into it. And there's a lot of friends and allies who live in Tennessee. Robbie Starbuck, of course, the Daily Wire crew. I don't want to spill the beans on the other people who are already planning on moving there, but some large prominent creators, influencers, and conservatives that you all know and have been on this show have told me that they're actually relocating as well. So
Australia as well. I think I'm moving there next year. So.
Australia?
No, Tennessee.
Oh, okay. I was like, yeah, because Australia's where they like it. Anyway,
Australia's already in the pods.
We're going to have that members only show coming up at timcast.com. So click join us, become a member, but we'll read your super chats. The deplorable Mrs. Drake says the reason why we give even murders and criminals respect and dignity. Jordan Peterson said, if we see each other as divine centers of consciousness, the world is a better place. Leftists don't see people that way. Yeah, they don't see people. Crispy Joe says, can I get another graph go up? That was really good. That was Angela McArdle. She was talking about the lolberts, the libertarians who are like, nothing matters as long as we make money. And it's like, yeah, okay. Morals matter, man. Vincent O'Rourke says the 20th Amendment should be the president cannot pardon anyone after the election if they lose. Thoughts? Nah, disagree. I don't mind having like a panel that can like veto a pardon, But even that's debatable. There's a reason why we give the president pardon powers. It's because there needs to be an individual check on a rigid bureaucratic machine. So
if we're going to strip away the power to pardon for any period of time, I think we should just strip it from the president altogether. I think the pardon does kind of undermine our whole judicial system to begin with. It's like, oh, we can go through the entire process. You can be found guilty by a jury of your peers. It was nice that we did the whole thing, but actually the president decided that you didn't commit a crime or should get out early. It just seems like an extra at the bottom of our judicial system.
It's a back door that needs to exist. There's always got to be two points of egress. So when it comes to the judicial system, juries get things wrong. And there are circumstances where courts refuse to acknowledge a person's innocence or release them, like when Kamala Harris did it.
But I don't think that's what's going on with the pardons. I'm sure that juries find wrong decisions all the time, but when pardons are given out, they're almost always political
J6,
completely.
Certainly. And then if you banned it, the J6ers would be locked up forever.
Sure, and I think that's a failure on our judicial system.
So there
and
needs
then
to
having
be an
the back door kind of undermines the whole system to begin with. But
I disagree. It's one person. It's used only in limited circumstances. And we just had those pro-lifers get pardoned. Elderly people who were like sitting in front of a building. This is what the pardon power is for. Not always used that way, but it is better that 10 guilty persons go free than one innocent person suffer. So if the president is pardoning 10 guilty people and we roll our eyes and we grumble about it, and then one innocent person is released, I think it's a good thing.
And he should have that executive power. I mean, what's the point of being president if you don't have the executive power to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Jason Nixon says, Tim, tell me why you were considering leaving West Virginia. I have land in Texas. Maybe I can help you find property. Kind of my thing. Yeah, we're not going to go to Texas. If we did, we would immediately go to Maryland, just because we still have the studio there. We still have the building there. And we could literally do the show there right now. Granted, we'd want to upgrade the cameras and get the lighting set properly and all that stuff because we got way better lighting now with the newly built studio. And we're exploring ways to largely reduce and divest from West Virginia over this law. And their tax law. There's other issues too. You know, like, don't think I haven't seen the comments where they're like, Tim couldn't open a coffee shop in 2 years in West Virginia. And what do you think the politicians in West Virginia say when I tell them, guys, we've been trying to open a coffee shop for 2 years. How do you think that makes me look when I go on a show to millions of people and say, come to West Virginia, we're opening a coffee shop, which should take 6 weeks, and it's been 2 years and we can't do it. Regulation is awful. And so I'll tell you this. A while ago, I told Allison, I give up, sell the building. We're done. And Allison was just like, they're about to issue the permit. And we finally did it. And this was like 6 months ago. And I was like, really? She's like, we're going to have it like this week. And I was like, all right, fine. We just got the permit. Oh my God. It's been 6 months. And so I said, nope, sell the building. We signed the papers. We're done. We are done. And, you know, this is probably why when we were advocating for people to build in West Virginia and join us, nobody would. Because the moment they take a look at the laws, the regulations, I was talking for some time with a very prominent individual in a particular industry. I'm going to keep it private. And I was telling them to relocate in West Virginia, and I was lobbying hard. And they came back to me and said, we've reviewed the Constitution, the laws, and the legislature of the state, and we're not going anywhere near it. And I was really bummed out. But this is where we're currently at. And so I'm at my wit's end. You know, I can tolerate the regulation, and I say, maybe we'll find a different place to open the coffee shop. We will figure this out. But when I found out the state passed a law banning individual contracting, or at least passing regulations in such a way that it makes it nigh impossible for an individual to just do the work, I said, I ain't doing that. That is evil. That is evil. If a 20-year-old guy knocks on a door and says, I am hungry and need work, please let me work for you, he should have to file a $300 permitting process to the state to get a license to work on someone's farm. There's got to be an employee. Let me tell you what happened with this. We were trying to hire someone, and the state took months to process the tax identification or whatever we needed to hire. So we said, okay, we can't hire you because the state's in processing. We'll contract you temporarily for certain specific jobs. They're coming after us over this. What is this? Why did you contract this person? Well, because we couldn't hire them as employees because you wouldn't file the paperwork because it took you 3 months. They're like, that you can't do that. Penalty. Screw you guys. Evil what they're doing. Yeah, so I'm at my wit's end, man. I'm so shockingly offended by this law. there's very little that angers me as much as what they are doing to take away the rights of individuals to work
Look, and another thing that's worth noting is like these kind of things happen to business owners every day across the whole country. And this is the kind of stuff that Musk is talking about with the federal Doge, right? And you still have all the problems on a state and municipal level, but there's also the federal government that you have to deal with. These kind of things are a massive problem for any kind of industry at all. So when you say, hey, we want to roll back regulation, people think, oh, you just want dirty air and dirty water and blah, blah, blah. No, we want this kind of stuff taken care of.
Sorry, can you continue?
Well, you want to be able to hire people. The biggest inhibitor to people having jobs and working is the government.
We can't have skate contests. We can't have skateboard contests. We're finding this out now. I was like, what do you mean? So we have the park. We have people sign waivers. We have insurance. They come and skate. We've done this already. We had like 17 contest winners. They fill out their tax forms. We pay them. Can't do it in West Virginia. Each individual who comes and performs a task in West Virginia must be registered as a business entity. And I'm like, what? A 20-year-old skateboarder from Ohio who came down for this one contest ain't going to be registering $300 in West Virginia to do a kickflip down a stair set. So we're trying to do another contest where we call it Boonies Bounties. And we're trying to get people to produce more culture and content. So we said every month we're going to have a bounty on a trick. This month it was a front side 180. For those that don't know, it just means you spin. You spin around. And we said, film yourself. Here are the contest rules. There's liability stuff. The winner is chosen by our members at Boonies HQ, not by us. And the winner will receive $200. And now our lawyer's like, maybe you could call it sponsorship, I guess. And like, no. We are not going to do any weird circuitous means by which we can pay a contest winner. Well, then they have to register in the state of West Virginia because they're delivering a product to be displayed by a West Virginia business and they're operating in the state. And I'm like, okay, do we cancel the contest? Do we never? This is evil stuff they're doing. Evil. We can't pay people? I'm so offended. I am so absolutely offended. And I will tell you this. Based on what they sent us, they could choose to enforce in any direction they want. That is how evil this is. They could choose to be like, you're fine there, but we want to go after you here. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. And I'll tell you this, I've got the documents, I pulled up the law, we've gone through it. It appears to be this is the case. I've had people in law be like, yeah, I know, they did this, and it's been a hassle. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm leaving. Anyway, I'm not going to keep ranting. I'm going to read some more super chats. All right. Dustin Wood says, Tim, please consider Arkansas as a state to move to. We have universal school choice next year, super low property taxes, cheap land, beautiful mountains and rivers, common sense. And Sarah Sanders, please check Northwest Arkansas especially. The first thing I'm going to do is check to see if your state is one of the states that have banned individual contracting, and we won't set foot in them. And I hope Tennessee hasn't done this. They may have. Who knows? Maryland, I hope not, because that's actually our first point of reprieve. But you know what, man? The bad news is there's no snow. Gotta have snow. West Virginia has a little bit. You can go snowboarding as a 2-hour drive into the mountains. So, you don't got mountains. You don't got skiing and snowboarding. I don't know if we can do it.
If you want skiing and snowboarding, the answer is New Hampshire, because there's a lot of snowboarding and skiing up there.
Yeah, and it's not too difficult to get to, but it's surrounded by evil states. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I was talking with Luke about this a few years ago. I was like, bro, you're surrounded on all sides by evil. Like, I don't want to put myself in that boat. Plus, New Hampshire actually is Democrat.
Well, the state legislature is all Republicans, but yes, the federal representatives tend to be Democrat.
Yeah, not doing it. Not doing it. I'll have to figure this one out. I know Maryland's not good either, but they didn't give us any hassle over this, and if, at least temporarily, we're going to find a state to go to that isn't doing these evil things. This is straight up Agenda 2030 stuff, where they're taking away the rights of people to just work. They want to take away your ability to trade with cash. There's already a bunch of stores that don't accept cash. They go credit only, card only. They want central bank digital currencies, and they're going to say, if you want a credit, you have to be an employee of the corporation. You can't just do work for your neighbor. I am offended.
One of the things here that is particularly unfortunate, too, is that the government thinks they're actually helping the workers, but they're harming them by not allowing them to get business at all, so it seems. And then they're just trying to line their pockets with forcing people to get these business permits.
I don't think that's why they're doing it. I do not believe that they're intending to help anyone. I genuinely believe these people are like, let's strip workers of their rights so that they're forced to be employees of Amazon, Walmart, Meta, etc. They're going to work for the corporations. You will own nothing and you will be happy. You will live in the pot and you will eat the bugs.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is saying that if you do any small amount of work consistently for a company, that you're going to have to hire them full time. But what they don't understand, I think, is that a lot of business would just forego hiring the people altogether if they can't be hired as a contractor instead of a full-time employee.
Big corporations like Uber or whatever can easily spend $10 million to adjust the company in such a way that it navigates the cracks of those laws. We cannot. We can't do it. We can no longer contract talent. We don't pay guests. We never do. But we do have periodically hosts and individuals that are contracted to appear on the show as talent. We can't do it anymore. Because specifically the laws, what they send us states that if the job can be done remotely, we can't require then it can be done anywhere. So if I said, Tom McDonald, I say, hey, can we pay you to be a regular on the show? Like, you choose your dates, whatever, you come by. And he says, yes, he has to have the legal right to do it remotely and to hire someone else to do it. And so it's like, okay, well, we can't contract it that way. We can trust he wouldn't do that, right? But then he has to register in the state as a business. And it's just like, okay. Otherwise, we have to apply our uniform employment policy to everybody, which then means that top talent to appear on a show are going to be like, no, because I have a show on another channel. I can't be an employee. Like this, with all due respect, I don't want to disclose too much about Luke's private life, but we talked with Luke about how we could have him permanently on the show. And the issue is he owns several companies himself. And we have a uniform employment policy, which says you can't work for other companies. And there's reasons for this because of IP rights and restrictions that we have to abide by. So we were like, yeah, we can't do it. Anyway, we'll grab some more. Just Because I'm Free says, if there are elements in the government that helped the shooter in PA, I think it's important they are exposed. If there was a corrupt cop, wouldn't you want them exposed? The narrative that it'll create distrust in the police isn't an argument. Agreed.
I think those files are, at this point, even more important than the JFK, RFK, MLK files, especially because it was so much more recent. But we'll see if they'll have a congressional hearing or investigation on that stuff. I believe they said they would before the election.
The excuse is always that it's disruptive and could screw the economy up and stuff like that, and people would revolt and whatever. All right. Polypure says, Tim, check out Maine. Tucker Carlson lives there and does his show there. Actually, one of our first choices before we came to West Virginia was Maine. It's expensive. It's like certain areas are pretty expensive. Hard to get to, and the internet's not so good. So we decided against it.
And Susan Collins would be your senator.
That would be miserable. So, and, but I don't know, maybe we should be going to these purple states where we can inject influence and actually force them to move in a certain direction.
What about Pennsylvania?
Yeah. That was Scott Pressler tweeted saying, go to PA and we will end the Democrat, regime or control or whatever, because we'll exert influence in PA and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I don't know.
We'll have to call John Fetterman. I'm sure he would lobby on PA's behalf too.
I don't want to go to a state and tell them to live my way. I'm from Illinois. That's where I grew up. So if I went to Illinois and said, everybody, you're wrong, do my thing, I feel fine about that because I grew up there. Going to West Virginia, there's a reason why I don't ask for favors. I don't want to come to West Virginia and tell these people how to live their lives. I'm new here. They lived here. But the state enacted this literally right before we bought the property and began investment. And it was an oversight on my part. Should have checked. I've been ranting about the AB 5 bill in California. I did a bunch of segments about how evil it is and corrupt. And West Virginia is doing the same thing. And it's corruption. What a lot of the guys in government are saying is like, look, man, we had the Manchin Democrats in West Virginia, and the entrenched bureaucracy here has caused a lot of problems for everybody. It makes it so nobody wants to come, nobody wants to do business. They're saying like, give us time, we're going to fix it. And I'm like, look, the only way that would work is if they dropped enforcement against us and everyone else. I'm not going to ask them to do that. If the governor wants to issue an executive order in the state that they're not going to enforce their crackpot, evil, garbage law on everyone in the state, maybe I'd consider it. But I'm offended that they even passed the law. That's egregious. All right, let's grab a couple more super chats. Otherwise, I'm just ranting. Digital Motion Media says, here in Indiana, we have no issues like this, and it's really cheap to live here compared to most places. Indeed, I like Indiana. Indiana's red, right? They had Mike Pence, though. I'll forgive you for that, Indiana. I've hung out in South Bend a little bit. Everyone in Chicago does. Rusty Shackelford says, Tim, why do you need special favors? Contact the state legislature and demand they repeal the gig law. Make the state a better place for everyone. If a guy owns a coffee shop and makes $40,000 a year, calls the state legislature and says repeal this law, they'll say, okay, sure, fine, whatever, click, and then never think about it twice. If a dude with a combined like 8 or 9 million followers, maybe like 10 million followers, calls and says, I'm going to go on X to 2.3 million people and disparage your state, they're going to be like, I will do whatever you say, and I hate that. I reject that. I flew on an American Airlines flight once, and it got canceled. We got deplaned, and they said, due to the weather, this flight, or it was a mechanical issue. And so everybody lined up and was complaining, like trying to get rebooked. My phone rings, and it was an agent being like, you're executive platinum. We've already got your flight booked. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, I get that because I'm a customer. I forgot what it was. I think maybe I got an email or something. It's been a long time. I get that because they're like, you're a priority customer. You get special access. I just really don't like that. I'm like, everybody needed to be on that plane. I understand there's limited space, and that's the reality of it. So what can I really complain about? I got my flight while everyone else was stranded. And all the like first class and priority status people got rebooked, and all the coach people were told, good luck. And now we live in this era where if I go to McDonald's and they make my burger wrong, I send a tweet and all hell breaks loose at McDonald's. And it's ridiculous that the world works that way. Everybody's entitled to good service and accountability. That means I should not talk to a legislature or a legislator or a mayor or whatever to get special favors. And Rusty, I know you're saying it's not a special favor, but it is true. If Elad calls them and says, I need something, they'll say, well, think about it. If Tim Pool calls, they're going to be like, whoa, that's Tim Pool. And that is just the reality of someone like me calling. So apparently me tweeting that I was leaving put up a bunch of red flags and alarms were going off and the state was freaking out that I said this. To be honest, guys, I really thought I was going to get 10 retweets when I said I was leaving West Virginia. I didn't realize it was going to be 1,000. So, yeah.
It is extremely true. If I called the state reps in West Virginia and said, hey, I'm having contracting issues, they would laugh at me. Tim has this bully pulpit of his platform, obviously, and then all of his stuff that goes wrong with Tim becomes a PR nightmare, as opposed to us plebs, us regular citizens who don't carry around that kind of clout.
A
lot of people
just be like, piss off.
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying Tennessee, of course. That's why Texas, Florida, Tennessee, New Hampshire were the options. Tennessee is really close and easy for us, and the weather isn't too different. And there's a lot of people moving there. That's why we're like, maybe Tennessee.
Vaughn's over there.
A ton of guests over there.
Theo Vaughn is there.
Vaughn's there.
Wow, Sean Ryan's there too.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the way to go.
Yep. And there's like 5 other people who are prominent personalities in conservative media who told me they're moving to Tennessee, and I'm like, really?
I'll see you there, Tim.
See this guy right here?
Baby.
All right, everybody. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know, become a member over at timcast.com to support our work, and, go in the Discord as a member and post which state you think we should pick. Should we go to Montana instead? There's great skiing, I hear. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. The members only show will be coming up in about a minute. You don't want to miss it. Good sir, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, Rattlesnake TV on YouTube, and also Jake Rattle SNK on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you very much for your hospitality and for having me, Tim. This was the show that actually got me into politics.
Wow.
So it's
amazing.
An honor to be here.
Absolutely. Well, it's an honor to have you. Great
Appreciate
to hear
it, man.
Jake, it's been fun having you on and hanging out and talking tonight. My name's Elad Eliyahu. After this show and after the after show, if you're watching, please check out my recent coverage of different anti-Trump protests on Tim Pool's The Culture War channel, or the Tim Pool channel, different from Timcast IRL. Phil?
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. You can subscribe to my Twitter page there. I am Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. We have a new record dropping next Friday, January 31st. You can go check out, the record's called Anti-Fragile. You can go check out 4 new singles right now. Forever Cold, Let You Go, No Tomorrow, and Divine. They're on YouTube, Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, and Deezer. Go to Spotify and pre-save right now, and don't forget the left lane is for crime.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about 1 minute. Thanks for hanging out.